O'Reilly! You need parts? O'Reilly Auto Parts has parts. Need them fast? We've got fast. No matter what you need, we have thousands of professional parts people doing their part to make sure you have it. Product availability. Just one part that makes O'Reilly stand apart. The professional parts people. O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Isn't it about time for somebody's favorite radio program?
Yeah.
97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
When I'm driving, I got a guy on the radio who talks to me. I can't see him, but he talks to me.
Now, live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Mike Gill.
Just after 2, Sports Bash is live. 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Streaming live video on the X platform at Mike Gill Show. Use the hashtag SB Live. What's up, everybody? Wow, we had a good playoff feel last night with the Phils. A lot of thoughts on that game last night. It was a fun game to watch. Felt very postseason-y, if you will. We'll dive into that. Eagles cut-down day today. They've already made a couple cuts. We have the latest for you. Busy day today. Colin Thompson, NFL free agent tight end, going to tell us what cut-down day is like from a guy who's got that call, who said, hey, bring me your playbook. You'll hear that coming up in about a half hour from now. John McMullen with all the latest on the Eagles, who makes it, who's cut, and what this roster is going to look like moving forward. You know, it's not just the Eagles cutting down their roster today. You've got teams from all over the NFL, and that means there's a lot of new free agents. There's a lot of options on the street, baby. We'll talk to Jeff Mosher at 4. Frank Close has the Phillies mailbag at 5 o'clock today. I've got a whole heck of a lot of thoughts on the Phillies game last night I want to dive right into with you guys. And I want you to get involved, as always, on the text board, 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. In the 3 o'clock hour, too, I want to talk a little concerts. I saw something today. My buddy texted me this thing. He texted me for a reason about concerts. And there's like a whole thing, I guess, on social media going around about different concerts you've been to, first one, last one, best one, yada, yada. And it's funny because I went to the concert, my first concert ever with this guy. And it made me think of it. So he sent me that, and I filled it out today, and I was laughing at some of my answers. I'd like to hear some of the answers. You're not a big concert guy there, are you there, Producer Josh?
I haven't been to many, no.
Well, if you're going to one, are you going to, like, Creed?
I am going to that Creed concert next month. Yes.
Are you? Where's that?
It's at Hard Rock.
Wow.
It's Creed. I think it's 3 Doors Down and Finger 11.
I was going to say, my next guest was like Creed, 3 Doors Down, POD.
Not a POD guy.
No?
POD was trash.
Okay, well, Nickelback.
Not a Nickelback
I feel
guy.
like that's like your genre. Like you're in that Creed, 3 Doors Down, that grouping.
Definitely Creed and 3 Doors Down, Disturbed, Godsmack.
Yep.
That's my alt-rock.
Godsmack might have been my least favorite of the
Really?
90s, like the 90s
See, the one-
post-grunge era, like that group, like right after them.
Yeah.
The Godsmack. Perry, what's his name, was the lead singer?
Sonny.
Sonny. Every one of his songs sounded, his voice is just, it's not his fault.
Grinds on you?
Well, it's just his voice, every song sounded just the same because his voice is so distinct. You know what I mean?
I understand.
So it was like hard to distinct the different songs because everything sounded the same. But keep that in mind. We'll do that in the 3 o'clock hour. Have a little fun with that as we're waiting for the Eagles roster decisions to come down. Most of the roster decisions so far have been pretty, predictable. John Ross got cut earlier today. I would be interested to see if he ends up making his way back to the practice squad. We'll see. I don't know that anybody else is going to pick up on John Ross, but Kadarius Toney's getting released today by the Chiefs. Any interest there?
Zero.
Zero.
He's a bit of a problem child.
Okay. Yeah, he's a guy who was a first-round pick by the Giants, right?
Correct.
And then he got traded over, and everybody thought, okay, you get traded over to the Kansas City Chiefs. They're going to get the most out of you. That didn't really happen. I haven't seen a name that has been released yet that has jumped off the table that said you should go after this guy. Have you?
I haven't seen one either. I mean, I'm sure there are going to be people out there that pretty much any player of consequence, like even with name recognition, people are going to want to look at. But there's no one of a position that I think they would need. Because to me, Mike.
Well, what positions are you looking at on the wire? Like when they get released and there's this position, you're going to say, I'd look at that name. Because there is one guy that I saw get released today, and of course his name is blanking me. I'll think of it in just a second. Well, but it was a wide receiver.
The position for me is tight end.
Well, they released today E.J. Jenkins, and also Albert O got released as well. So they are really down to
just Goddard, Calcaterra.
Yeah, they're down to just the 2 tight ends. And ironically, we're going to talk to free agent tight end Colin Thompson here. Terrence Marshall got released by Carolina. Any interest?
Right. Not really.
I mean, he was, LSU, pretty good player in college. Well, really good player in college. He's been okay in the pros. Not great. He's been okay. But I think it was a second-round pick. I mean, he's been good. He's been great. 2 years in the league, 64 catches, 767 yards. He's been okay. But last year, he averaged almost 17 and a half yards a catch. I mean, He is a guy who can give you some big plays maybe. So that was one name that I saw that if the Eagles kind of said, you know what, let's bring him into camp, I wouldn't be shocked. But that's the only name so far that I've really seen out there that jumped off the page and like, hey, okay, there's a receiver that like might be someone they could bring in. Second-round picks, got some talent, speed.
My concern with some of these guys is when you are a bad football team, right? Like Carolina, for example. When you're a bad football team and you let go of a talented player, or you're a team like the Chiefs and you have a guy like Andy Reid who can make something out of anything. When those kind of people release somebody, I have questions. Do I really want somebody else's leftover trash?
Well, Marshall was hurt last year, so you don't really know. His rookie season, though, I'm going back to 2 years ago now for him when he, actually last year was his third year. So it was his second season. He had 28 catches, 490 yards, and a touchdown. He averaged 17.5 yards per catch. Like, could you put him – now, he's a little big. He's like 6'2", 200 pounds. But could you bring him in and be the backup for a Smith or would he be an upgrade just to get him in here, a talented guy – that if Smith or Brown got hurt, he projects better on the outside than anybody else you have. That's all. Nothing crazy. That's all I'm looking at.
Yeah, if that's what your rationalization is, I can hear you. But it's just, to me, if he is someone worthwhile for the Eagles, why wouldn't the Panthers keep him?
Well, the Panthers have their own issues over there. They're a team that's trying to kind of, as you're saying, clear out people. Maybe, they're they got a new coaching staff. They got new people in there.
So you're saying he maybe just doesn't fit what they want to do.
Well, just like Dotson. Maybe because you got a new GM, he just wanted to kind of start from scratch over there. But your question is valid. But we will get into that a little bit later on throughout the show. We're going to keep our eye on the waiver wire and see who kind of makes their way to that waiver list. I want to get into the Phillies game last night. And I want to preface this by saying that win last night I thought was a really good win, a much-needed win. They're now 3 in a row. They've won 8 out of their last 12, the Phillies. If my math adds up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 out of 12 they've won. They're 8-4 in their last 12 games. That was an impressive win last night. It was a playoff type of atmosphere, a playoff type of feel. Houston, you could say, is a World Series contender. I don't think they're a favorite by any stretch of the imagination. But, you had 2 starting pitchers, really good. You got Wheeler last night. I told you guys yesterday, Blanco, he's tough. He pitched really well last night. You got into their bullpen. Neris, a guy I said the Phillies should have gone after. He came in, got the strikeout. Ort came in. He did his job. King came in. He did his job. Abreu came in. Their bullpen is really good. So you're facing a good pitcher and a good bullpen. The Phillies last night had 9 hits. They had runners on base last night. They left 9 guys in scoring position. Bohm had a rough night at the office. Marsh, who did hit the home run, he left a couple guys on base. So it was a good playoff type of game. And that's the kind of game the Phillies, in the playoffs have lost before. When they lose, it's because they go kind of cold. They only scored 3 runs last night, but they did have 9 hits. It was good to see Turner. But the biggest moment of the game, by the way, Stott, I gave you the Bet365 play last night. That was a win. He had 2 hits. None of them left the infield, though.
But they're hits. They count.
That's cash money.
Exactly.
I'll give you another one tonight at 5:45, the Bet365 play of the day. So far, it looks like I'm 1-1. I see like you got a little tally going here.
Yes.
That's good.
Well, you asked me to last week, so.
So, thank you. The play of the game is obviously Harper. Harper is the one guy, if you were listening to yesterday's show, we kind of brought up. Like, Harper's the one guy that doesn't feel like he's coming around. Everybody's starting to kind of come around in this little win streak that they've got going. They scored a bunch of runs. They got a bunch of hits. He hit that double in the game on Sunday against the Royals. But last night, if there was any player that needed last night to happen, it was Bryce Harper. The fact that it was Bryce Harper that got the big hit last night, that wins them the game, does that change the feel about the fact that this team is starting to win games? I think there's a lot of people out there that are like, I'm not buying in. They're not back. And I'm not calling you crazy because I agree with you. I don't think this team is like ready to hit full throttle. I don't think they feel like the team that they were the first 3 months of the season. But what I will say is, look, we're into September baseball for the most part now. The games are different now than they are in April, May, June, July. They're just different. Everybody that you're facing pretty much, let's see, from now until, this series, you got a first-place team.
Right.
The next series, you got Atlanta, who's battling for the wild card.
And you've struggled against them this year.
Toronto, Miami, and Tampa. Those 3 teams probably, Toronto's out of it. They might be a fringe on the wild card. I don't think they're in. There's 7 games out of the wild card, and Tampa Bay. Toronto's 8 out of the wild card. Tampa Bay 7 out of the wild card.
Toronto and Tampa are talented enough that you got to take the game seriously, but they're not talented enough that they should scare you.
So you have a little bit of a reprieve there, but then the rest of the way, the Mets, the Brewers, the Mets again, and Chicago and Washington. Chicago is pretty much out of it. So, in fact, Chicago is 5.5 out. So they're not out of it. You really only have 2 series left with teams that are Toronto and Tampa would be fringy out of it. Toronto's won 5 in a row, by the way, to get themselves kind of within 8 games.
Yeah,
but
they knocked the Red Sox around a little bit yesterday.
They don't have, September games are going to be different than April, May, and June games.
Right.
The game last night is like a playoff game. You got 40,000 people there. You've got a good Astros team who, by the way, the Astros are still playing for first place. They are 3.5 games up on the Mariners in the West over there. So they have a little bit of a battle going. Plus, they're trying to get themselves, within striking distance to get out of that wild card game. You're right. Right now, they're the 3rd division winner, so they would play the wild card team. But they're 4 games behind Cleveland for that 2nd spot. So that game last night is a playoff feel. And the Phillies needed that one. They needed to have that game last night. The Braves were up 9-1 in the 2nd inning last night. It actually got kind of interesting. I think it was 10-5 the last night I looked at that score. I don't know what the final score of that game. They won 10-6 last night. So you didn't get to, move any ground in the standings. The Braves kept pace with you last night. They're still 6 games back. But to get that game last night and get the win because of Bryce Harper off Josh Hader. It's a lefty. You're struggling. and he just puts it through the infield. It's a walk-off win. It made Harper almost smile for the first time, it seems like, in a month, right? When was the last time Harper has been able to put a smile on his face? Because he had 2 hits last night. He had 2 walks last night. He got on base 4 times, and it's the first time since August 8th, and really the 5th or 6th time since June 1st that he has been a part of the offense last night. 210 in his last 30 games going into last night. So Harper, you needed that from him last night. It's the first time you felt like maybe he's coming around. That's the biggest takeaway. So I'm saying it was an impressive win, but it's not making me say they're back, they're going to win the World Series. But to finish strong here, to put yourself in the best position to win a World Series, that was a big moment last night.
Yeah, for me, Mike, when Harper got that game-winning base hit, I tweeted out with the gif of The Rock saying, finally. It's like Harper's just like, finally. Finally you came up in a big moment and you showed us who you are, because we haven't seen it most of the year. And I think that...
Well, we haven't seen it most of the second half. He was good in the first. I mean, Harper was an MVP a candidate for a little while there.
Right,
I also thought the other big swing last night, I know I'm not a big Marsh guy, but I thought that home run he hit the opposite way, he crushed that thing. Mm-hmm. And it was just a good swing. He seemed excited. He sprinted essentially around the bases there. That was a moment last night that I thought was worth bringing up here. I don't know what it means for Marsh. I still don't have a lot of confidence in Marsh. But the play of the game is Rojas in center field last night. I don't think Marsh makes that play.
He does not make that play. And that's a huge point, Mike, because my complaint about this Marsh in center, Hayes in left field lineup has been you're losing that Rojas in center field.
And if you watch that play last night and you're the Phillies, you got to be thinking to yourself, man, if he's not out there, we don't make that play.
Nope.
And if we don't make that play, we might lose that game, because the ghost runner would have ended up scoring probably on that play.
Correct.
And then, you're at least tied here. But here's a question for you. Johan Rojas in the month of August, 311, 9 runs, 5 RBI, 4 stolen bases, and on the season, 314 with runners in scoring position, and he's hitting 319 with 2 outs and runners in scoring position.
Wow.
I mean, those numbers are all suggesting that, hey, Rojas is saying, how come I can't get more playing time?
It's a great question to ask. So why doesn't he get more playing time? Why?
Well, the play he makes in center field last night, do the Phillies have to start thinking about giving him more playing time?
Yes.
Now, right now, you're in a run of you're not facing a left-handed pitcher until Saturday when you play the Braves, and you can hear that game right here on 97.3 ESPN. We got Phillies and Braves at 7 o'clock, and then we'll have the Phillies and Braves on Sunday Night Baseball. But if you're the Phillies, do you have to start wondering, man, defensively, we might not win that game last night if not for Rojas. And the way Rojas is actually swinging the bat, we might have to actually give him some more opportunities.
100%. Because at the end of the day, you need your best players in the field. And right now, I don't think the combination of Marsh and Hayes out there are your best 2 combo center field, left field.
Well, defensively, obviously not. I think Marsh is weak. No, I don't think. Marsh is significantly weaker in center field than Rojas is. I mean, that's not even a topic. that's not even a topic of conversation. That's definitive.
Well, it's definitive to us, but we have to keep reminding people of it because the Phillies seem to not be too concerned about the defense because they keep trotting these guys out there.
Well, it's been a small sample size that they haven't cared about the defense, okay? I mean, that's not really fair because Rojas did get a chunk of games early this year. But I guess the question is, do they have to strongly reevaluate the whole situation with Marsh? And listen, I get it. Marsh against right-handed pitching, you're generally going to play him. He gives you some power. He gives you a little something. But, man, that play defensively last night, you saw Strom. I mean, he was had the hat off.
Yep.
I mean, then gave him a little Bash Brothers like it was McGuire and
Listen,
Canseco.
I even did a little fist pump while watching the game.
Did you?
Know? Yeah. Well, I mean, like you said, that's a play that nobody else is going to make, and he made it. He perfectly timed it, got that ball. I mean, that was a moment that you thought, okay, the Phillies can win this game. Like, if he doesn't make that play there, you're deflated.
If he doesn't make that play, and then just think if Marsh is in there and he doesn't make that play and potentially the ball gets past you,
of course
and
it does.
you score a run, and then the guy maybe goes to second base. I just thought that play, and Rojas gets up. He does like the Dikembe Mutombo. He's got the finger wag. You know, it was just a great moment in the game, and it kind of energized that team. So last night's win for the Phillies, it was a three-pronger. It was great pitching.
Not Chris Pronger.
No, not Chris Pronger. It was great pitching, right?
Yes.
Great game not a great game, but a good, solid game from Wheeler. I thought he wasn't his best last night, but
he
he
was
good
solid, though. That was one of those. So you ever hear John Kruk tell the story what Kurt Schilling used to tell him that, most of the games every year you got to find a way to win because you're not going to have your best stuff.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's what I thought of last night. The idea that, if you only have 5 to 10 games starts every year where you have your best stuff, and the rest of them you got to find a way to win. I think Wheeler deserves credit for finding a way to win.
Well, I've been talking about this since Friday. It's a blueprint game for the Phillies. Your starter gives you 6 or 7.
Yep.
And then the combination of Kerkering, Hoffman, Estevez, and Strom, those 4 guys, Alvarado, more on him coming up. Those 4 guys mix in for the final 3 innings. Last night, Kerkering came in, got a strikeout. Hoffman came in, got the job done. Estevez came in. I know he's a roller coaster, but he threw strikes last night. And then Strom got the extra innings, and he got the strikeout, including a big one last night in that 10th inning. And that was really, the difference in the game is the Phillies bullpen. And look, their bullpen too. But Hader, they go to their closer, and he can't get the job. Now, he struck out 3 guys in an inning.
In the 9th. He got the job done in the 9th, but he couldn't get the job done in the 10th.
Well, great atmosphere, great game, blueprint for the Phillies. Wheeler, the guys, the bullpen, which we've been questioning. So is the bullpen kind of regaining their mojo a little bit? You look at the ERAs in that bullpen and the guys who pitched last night. Kerkering, 231. Hoffman, 195. Estevez, 236. Strom, 213. Those are excellent numbers.
They are. And I think we have to start talking about that maybe the bullpen has found their way home.
Well, right. They hit a little bit of a rough patch, and now they've kind of pushed their way through.
Exactly. And so now that they've pushed their way through, it seems like they've come out the other side and they found themselves again. And that's a huge, important key for them because guess what? There's no team that makes a deep playoff run without a good bullpen.
Well, bullpen, most important thing possibly to win a World Series. You need bullpen, and they got it last night. More Sports Bash on the way. Hey, I've been telling you about the beautiful MDX. I was driving from Kia Acura of Atlantic City, but guess what? They got a brand new 2025 MDX just arrived right now. And now, between the end of the month, you can lease a slick 2025 all-wheel drive for just $599 a month with $49.95 down. And all you need to do to get the best out of it is go to another Acura dealership, get yourself a estimate, a price, and Kia Acura will beat that price by $1,000. Talk to my friend Rocco over at Kia Acura of Atlantic City, a small but friendly dealer. They'll take care of that for you. Present them the estimate. They'll beat that price by $1,000. You have from between now and the end of the month to do it. When we come back, what's cut down day like for an NFL player? Find out when we talk to NFL free agent tight end, former Carolina Panther tight end, Colin Thompson from the Colin Thompson Show on Not For Long Media on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
You're listening to the with Mike Gill
Never thought this radio stunt would catch on so big.
on 97.3 ESPN.
.229 Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, streaming live video on the X platform. At Mike Gill Show, use the hashtag SBLive. Colin Thompson, NFL free agent tight end, Carolina Panthers. Obviously, it's cut down day today, so a lot of guys waiting impatiently, I would imagine, to find out what this their fate is. We'll talk to Colin Thompson about that and more right now on the Sports Bash, host of the Colin Thompson Show. and he joins us now on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. What's up, my brother? How are you?
Mike, it is great to see you. Can't wait to be in Cape May this weekend.
Whoa, you're going to be in Cape May this weekend?
Yes, but as a dad, it's going to look a little bit different now. But it's Cape May, still the same thing.
Wow.
Little Mayors, a little Lobster House, Seaview.
Did not know that. I would if I would have known. Well, you're still invited. I'm going to be in Cape May Saturday all day.
Wow, a little Original Fudge Kitchen stop, Mike. Where are you going?
Well, we're doing the Cape May County Brewery Tour.
Is there a better county for breweries and maybe a little sea breeze in the world?
No, there isn't. But we're starting at noon, going till 9.
Oh boy! Now where are you finishing, Mike? Well, where are you coming to Cape May? Are you going to Cape May Brew?
No, we're starting. We're starting at the top at Ludlam and working our way down to Gusto.
Okay, so is this something where it's a maximum of 2 beers per stop?
Well, we got a driver.
Well, I know that,
Yep.
but like these aren't light beers, Mike. This isn't like me crushing some, Corona Lights from Collier's or the Seaview.
Penn State, West Virginia. We're going to bounce from like one half, then the next half, then Florida State, Miami, Phillies,
Miami,
Braves.
Gators.
Yeah, Florida Gators. Sorry.
Very nice, Mike. So you are stopping at the Great Cape May Brew.
We will probably, if we have time left on the meter, we will head down that all the way down to the bottom. I did eat at Lucky Bones on Saturday night last week.
How many plugs can we get in to start the show? It's fantastic. They're all great places, though. Cape May is the best, in my opinion, pure like Jersey Shore town when it comes to food.
Yep.
Because it's year round. Like they don't close. Those places don't close. They're open. Maybe they close January.
It's funny because I was going to text you to see if you were in town this weekend.
Let's go.
But I don't know if you have the stamina any longer to go from noon to 9.
I have, listen, once a star, always a threat, as they say in Entourage. But I will say this, Mike. To me, just to waltz out of the house for a full day now with a 5-week-old, probably not a good plan. I will be watching some football there, a little Seaview action. So if you get a wild hair and you're really, really got a good one going, maybe we'll see you at the end of your trip.
I will text you, and I'll give you the itinerary. Maybe you just want to pop in and meet us at one of them or two.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Cut down day. Give
Rough
our
day,
listeners a little insight on what this day is like for guys on the back end of the roster, such as yourself throughout your NFL career.
All right, I'll go through real quick from the teams I got cut from because I think it's a fun little addition. I just thought about that. Giants got cut after preseason game number 1. Signed with the Bears. I was there for a year. Got cut after preseason game number 5. We played the Hall of Fame game that year. Urlacher, Ray Lewis went in. I got cut in Carolina the first year, 2020, and thought I was done. Coach Rule called me, Cape May resident in the offseason, and said, don't go anywhere. We're going to put a guy on injured reserve. We're going to sign you back. That happened. So how the 53 looks today, put it in pencil. It's going to be in pen probably week 1 at, for the Eagles at 11:30 a.m. on Sunday morning or for Friday morning for them, right? Like it's going to change 2 Fridays from now. So I got cut from the Carolinas, signed back to the active roster the next day. The next year, I actually was the first and only time I made a 53-man roster out of training camp, 2021. The next year, I got hurt, got cut. You get off. I was torn. Do I go on the PUP list, get cut, and then I can't come back to the team till week 5? That's a tough one. Now you get hurt.
You get paid for that?
You get injury compensation for those 4 weeks. But you may go, and they may bring a tight end in behind you, and they may say, hey, we're good now. So I bet against myself. I said, I'm going back in the building. I signed to the practice squad. A little injured I didn't practice till like week 5. But I was getting the secured money of a practice squad dollar. So that's from a holistic standpoint. And then last year I was in Minnesota, played all 4 preseason games, got cut. No practice squad. So remember this too now, folks. 16 members on the practice squad. So that's 53, right? Do the math. You're looking at close to about 71, 72, 73 guys when you include people going on injured reserve. So more guys make the team now. About 15 guys don't make it. What's it like on cut day, Mike? Luke Kuechly called me in Carolina the first year. Hey, Colin, it's Luke Kuechly. You're like, hey, Luke, how you doing? Bring your iPad. You got to talk to coach, right? That's how it goes. Or I've been cut, and I finished a practice squad lift in Chicago, and I got cut there in season. And there was 11 guys in the lift out of the 10 practice squad players. And one of the guys was like, there's 11 guys in here. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, there's 11 people. I'm like, okay. He's like, there's only 10 practice squad members. I entered the locker room after the lift. The Grim Reaper was sitting in my seat. I went up. John Fox cut me. He said, we'll bring you back Monday. And that was normal practice. I came back Monday. It's just a roster move. So there's so much that happens, Mike. Again, to answer your question initially, and I'll be brief because I'm running long per usual, is the bottom line is this. Those spots on a roster, there's about 8 spots really available, maybe a little bit more per team. But they could pull guys from other teams to fill those 8 spots.
Right. That's what's going on now. Guys are getting released. So you're on a roster right now, and you're looking around, like Carolina, for instance, they just released Jordan Matthews at tight end. You're a guy that plays tight end. You're looking at that and being like, if you're on another team, say Philadelphia, are you looking and say, man, they just cut a tight end over there? And if they haven't made their announcements yet, because it looks like the Eagles have not had their full cuts yet. So if you're sitting there, you got to be restless.
You're restless. You don't sleep the night before. But, the older you get, Mike, and the wiser, you're like, I've done everything I could do. But what maybe folks wouldn't understand is this is such a short-lived deal. We're talking your 2.5 years is the average. So, like, all your chips are in. Everything in your life, every workout, every thought, everything I do, even when I'm at the CVU having a couple beers or Taco Caballito or at Barefoots, where we used to hang out. Like, it's always there. And when I'm done, I'm going to have to adjust to that, right? But it's always, okay, here's my off day today. I can have some fun. On Mondays, my working out. And then these guys getting cut, you got to stay ready because in season, come week 1 after the first week, if your position group isn't playing well or there's a lot of injuries, I've been a place where the tight ends didn't have a good week, and I was one of the tight ends that didn't. And there are 6 tight ends on the field on Monday morning working out right in front of the weight room when you're working out, and there's guys off the street. So it is a revolving door. It is when people say business, they say it and they say, yeah, I get it. No, you are an entity. And if you're on the roster by 5 p.m. on Tuesday, you get paid for the week ahead. But if you're I've been cut at 4:59.
Ooh,
there you go. There's your money. It's gone. It's all, you get paid 18 games, 17 games plus the bye weeks. You get 18 checks. For you to make that, say you make $1 million, for you to make that $1 million, you need to be on the roster for those 18 games, unless you have guaranteed money. So it's fun stuff. The business of football is awesome. I'll tell you, Howie Roseman's one of the best in the league. Yeah, Mike, he navigates it tremendously.
And the fact that it's all done on one day now how does that change things? Where it's all just one big, used to have a couple different cut down days.
Yeah. Thank God they do it all in one day, Mike, because I would hate to be the veteran in preseason game number 3 that is on the roster but has to go play in the game because they had to cut 25 guys. Like, that was so backwards. Like, what they're doing is the right way. Give these guys opportunities in game 3, game 4, whatever you're playing, to continue to play and give the veterans rest, because I think the rosters would get cut down to 65. That means your guys that are playing for you in a week are playing. You don't want that. So, hey, listen, all this debate that we've been drumming up, Mike, have they rested players enough, or the starters should play? Like, all that goes away week 1. Thank God we get to talk real football. It doesn't matter, folks. There's teams that don't play starters. There's teams that play starters, and they've had success and they've had good health. The bottom line is this: who's healthy, and who are you playing, and the timing of when you're playing them. That's the NFL. Everyone has the same amount of draft capital. Everyone has the same salary cap. It's all about timing. It's all about timing. The Eagles picked poor time last year, right, for their slide, but had a great start to the year. So it is a long game. And I know in the Philadelphia market, it's very short and quick.
Well, as you know, the expectations are always crazy, and I don't want to say out of control. The expectations, Colin, for this team should be what? Super
Bowl. Absolutely. You don't make those moves. I think, listen, Saquon Barkley is the least talked about great player in the NFL. We're talking elite player in the NFL. I think there's 2 running backs that are in his category. You could say 3, but Nick Chubb's banged up, and it's Christian McCaffrey and It's Saquon Barkley. They're guys you pay whatever it takes to get them in the building, and they're in a separate category than running backs when it comes to, certain buildings believe in running back by committee. You've seen that in Philly, New England. Certain buildings, right, move on from all-time greats. Tennessee moving on from Derrick Henry, right? So going after him, Mike, is a different ball game, and I don't know if Phil. He could get hurt. Well, that's every player in the league. When he touches the ball, he is a scoring threat every time. And Philly people know him really well from Penn State. They know him really well for the Giants. This is a guy that's now going to have the lightest box to ever run against because the receivers and the tight end group for the Eagles is the best in the NFL as a combination, tight end and receivers. And O-line, right? You're talking about the best offense in the NFL, really, especially with Trent Williams not playing for the Niners right now. So a lot of pressure, but that's the standard in Philly. That's what makes it the best city to play in. I think it's the best fans in the world. And I played in a lot of cities, and there's nothing like it. Nothing like it.
Well, I'll tell you what, you get two new coordinators in here. Does that how does that change the dynamic for what this team is? A lot of people wondering what's Sirianni's role, what does he do? He got two new coordinators in. How much does that change what this Eagles team will be?
Yeah, I personally believe in head coach in college and the NFL shouldn't be a coordinator. I mean, you can be and you can have a really big impact, but at the end of the day, there's so much more on your plate now with football. When it comes to the things outside football, especially college football now, your head coach cannot call plays. There's so much. But in the NFL, maybe. I have no problem with McDonald going to Seattle from Baltimore, right? He's like, I'm calling the plays. That's how I got this job. I need to call the plays until we're set. So I digress, Mike. For me, it is what it is. I've been so many different places with people coming in and out. It's all about the players respecting the coordinators and the coordinators respecting the players. Why players get frustrated is this coach didn't put me in the best place to have success. And you're saying, well, that's shallow. That's on the coach. Well, that's what their job is, right? Their job is to say, okay, Howie Roseman, you got me this player. You picked the players. You gave me this guy. Now I have to find a way to make him successful. Mm-hmm. So, right, from my perspective, talk about the type of player I was, a blocking tight end. I was in on 3rd and short. I was in on 4th and short. I was used on special teams. I was in on, go-to run situations. We do a tempo run plays where we're just running the same play over and over until it's stopped. I was in on that. If I'm in on 3rd and long running routes, yeah, I can do it. I have to be able to do it to play tight in the NFL, but I'm not Dallas Goedert creating mismatches down the seam where he's a freak athlete. So to me, Mike, it's they got to get good camaraderie, good respect, and that's kind of what Nick's known for, right? Is bringing everyone together, getting everyone on the same, same page. It seems like he's changed a little bit too, a little less full of emotion, a little more learning a little bit on okay, how I got to act because my players act that way too. I think that passion's applauded until you start losing, right? And then when you start losing, then people poke holes in it. So I'm a fan of Nick. I think Kellen Moore is the real deal. And I think we're going to see some things for their offense that we did not see in the preseason. I think you're going to see some under center stuff. So yeah, excited for it, Mike. What another great ride it's going to be for your show and for the city of Philly with this team.
Yeah, and I know the expectations. You said Super Bowl and should be Super Bowl. A lot of people, I think one of the reasons why there is some trepidation, Colin, is because of the way they ended last year, which no one seemingly has, a clear-cut, bona fide answer for. Everyone just, has that, though. It's like PTSD of what happened last year. I think the Eagles basically said, look, we didn't think our coordinators were strong enough. We replaced them and then went out and got some more talent. Barkley, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. We drafted 2 guys at a position that we were a little weak at. So I think they kind of said the coordinators were admittedly the wrong guys. You don't agree?
Well, whether they were the wrong guy or the right guy, I don't think Howie gave Nick a choice. He's the pure general manager. He picks. At the end of the day, that's his responsibility to pick the coaches. When you're the general manager or a president of an organization, the buck stops with you. So, whether they were right or wrong or whatever it is, that's up for debate. I think to win those games the way you won early on, then there were great wins, and the Eagles were winning close games. And we're talking about how you and I were talking about on this show many times. Hey, listen, they know how to win close football games. There was a major culture shift. That's why those losses happen. It's one thing to lose 2, 3, maybe even 4 in a row, right? But still look competitive. But there was times they didn't look competitive. They didn't have the fire. They didn't have the juice, right? The ball could bounce your way, right? Like Kansas City game, the Eagles won. That was a touchdown throw, walk off, and my man dropped it, I believe. I forget. I think it could have been Valdez-Scantling. I forget who it was. So, like, there was plays that year where the Eagles, if the ball bounced our way, but in those wins, are we still learning the same way if we lost? Like, some of my games I got shredded the most on, Mike, were games we won. And that's what a good sign of a good coach. Was it didn't matter the result. It matters on how you're playing.
Well, the weird part about last year, like you just mentioned it, the Chiefs game, the Buffalo game, the Eagles won games against they won on the road at Kansas City. They beat Buffalo. They beat good playoff teams. They beat up on Miami. So it's like, how do you go from that to what ended up happening? It just doesn't there just seems to be no explanation for it.
It all falls on the GM, the head coach, and the owner, right? Like, and the quarterback. That's it. I think they got a good group there. Owner, GM, quarterback, head coach.
What do you think of adding Dotson?
Oh, that's a great move, depth-wise, right? This guy's unbelievable, right? A ridiculous year. If he had anything near the same production, how's he going to handle not being the man? I'm not saying he's not going to handle it well, but like, there's no way he's not. How are they going to handle not getting the ball as much? All of them. Because you can't. There's only one ball.
Yeah.
So, like, what they're going to do, the Eagles.
Well, guess what? He got traded because he wasn't the man. Pretty much.
Yeah. Well, he's a pretty good. I mean, he's almost a number 2, like a 2A. He's legit. Mm-hmm. I just think, to me, there's only one ball. So how are we going to handle this culturally? How's Coach Sirianni going to handle this culturally? Like, hey guys, like Dallas has got to touch it. Brown's got to touch it.
Yeah.
Smith has to. Saquon does. A backup running back's probably going to. Jalen Hurts is going to be running the football. So as everyone stays on the same page about keep the main thing about winning, not how pretty it looks, Eagles will be fine. I thought last year the main thing was not the main thing. And the sky was falling and the media sky was falling when the Eagles were 12-1. I was like, what are we doing? A win's a win. But again, the standard of, hey, listen, whether we win or lose, like, how are you grading out? And what's that? I thought that would be my guess. We were just getting a little comfy.
Well, it all starts on Friday, September 6th, right here on 97.3 ESPN, a Friday night Eagles opener in Brazil against the Green Bay Packers, and you can listen to that game on 97.3 ESPN. Colin Thompson is host of the Colin Thompson Show on Not For Long Media, and of course, you can check him out there and right here on the Sports Bash and frolicking around Cape May this weekend. All right, buddy. I will. I'll shoot you a text.
I won't. Please do. I won't be frolicking like you, Mike. Please. Good luck to your liver, pal.
Well, it's my girlfriend's birthday, so.
Hey, listen. No excuse needed for me, pal. Sounds like a great Saturday.
All right, buddy. See you. Colin Thompson, everybody, here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. All right, I got plenty more to go, including next hour, John McMullen joins me to talk a little bit more about the possibilities of this roster. What it might look like, and is there anybody on the waiver wire that stands out so far? We'll talk to John at 3. We'll have the final rosters at 4 when Adam Kaplan joins us for football at 4. Got some Phillies news on the other side. That's coming up next here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN, your home for college football Saturday. West Virginia, Penn State at noon. The Florida Gators and the Miami Hurricane at 3:30. That's all this Saturday on 97.3 ESPN.
It's
America. We are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. By honoring your sacred vocation of nursing, you impact your family, your friends, and your community. At Grand Canyon University, our online RN to BSN, MSN, or DNP degree programs allow you to balance online coursework with local in-person clinical, practicum, or immersion hours. Find your purpose at GCU. Private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu.
with Mike Gill.
Do I have everybody's attention now?
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
254 Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Mike Gill with you. John McMullen joins us for an update on all things Eagles 1 hour before the roster has to be in. And one thing with this roster, John Ross, by the way, has been one of the names that's been released today. I think E.J. Jenkins, the tight end, Albert O, the other tight end. So they only have 2 tight ends. Actually, just an update on Albert O. He'll be placed on injury reserve, a core muscle repair, 6 to 8 week recovery, and he will be eligible to return at some point this season. Right now, E.J. Jenkins, it looks like the Eagles' initial is 2 tight ends, Dallas Goedert, Grant Calcaterra. Jack Stoll, by the way, was released by the Giants, so that means that he could be finding his way back to the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll have more on that coming up at 3 o'clock with John McMullen from Birds 365. We'll get all the latest on the Eagles roster moves, and that's coming up next here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill, and don't forget, this Friday we are live for Happy Hour Friday at Jester's Dive Bar in Rio Grande. We invite everybody to stop out and see us live at Jester's Dive Bar in Rio Grande. This Friday, we'll have tickets to the Killers, and I got 10 more spots for this year's 99 Bottles Party, which we have a location for. We have a location for this year's 99 Bottles Party. I'll give you those details coming up as well. This Friday, Jester's Dive Bar, Rio Grande, Sports Bash celebrating 15 years. Where are my Cape May County friends at? We'll see you down there this Friday, live at Jester's Dive Bar, the Sports Bash on Happy Hour Friday.
Jersey. This is the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Now live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Mike Gill.
Cutdown Day continues. We'll get the latest. John McMullen covers the Eagles, Bird 365, weekday mornings at 8 a.m. on the Jacob Media YouTube channel. You can watch that tomorrow morning, get reactions. And, of course, right now on the Sports Bash is Paris Campbell apparently is the latest casualty. Him and John Ross, a couple of veterans, not making the Eagles' initial 53, John. So some interesting moves today. Let's start with that. No Campbell and John Ross. Can we see those guys back, or are there names that have been released today that might interest the Eagles?
Quez Watkins. Nah.
Oh, jeez. He did get released.
I don't want to get an Eagles fan.
He did get released today by Pittsburgh.
He did get. Yeah. I don't want to get Eagles fans excited. Now I'm a little bit surprised that Paris didn't make it simply because Anaya Smith is going to start on injured reserve, and I thought maybe that would open up a spot. And you know, you think about Jahan Dotson getting here, and he's got to get ramped up in a new offense very quickly. Maybe the Eagles would have liked to have had that veteran presence. So I thought there was a little bit of a chance that move would have meant they'd keep him around at least for a few weeks until Jahan Dotson got up to speed. But, yeah, I mean, that wide receiver group was not wowing. Other than obviously at the top with AJ and Devontae. So evidently the Eagles want to move forward. It wouldn't be surprising if they brought one of the 2 back to the practice squad. You know, you're allowed to have veterans on the practice squad these days, so they can go about it that way. And I would, you know, depending on what you want, if you just want that speed trait, you probably want John Ross, although Paris is fast himself, but not really the deep threat, or at least he hasn't been in his NFL career, more of a slot receiver. If you want that, you'd go that direction. But, you know, the Anais news sort of opened up a little bit of hope for those guys, but not overwhelmingly surprised that both are out.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Watkins. He did get cut today, and I don't know, was there any, I don't know how much you've been scouring the waiver wire, but is there a name that stands out that might make you say, I wouldn't be surprised if they brought him in?
No, I don't think so. I don't think they're looking to bring in, certainly. I mean, their move was Jahan Dotson. I mean, that was their move at wide receiver. And I think, it'll take a little while. You might have to be a little bit patient, but that was the splash move at wide receiver. I think if you're looking outside the organization, it's going to have to be tight ends, where looks like they're only going to keep 2 on the initial 53. And obviously, Kellen Moore is known for liking to play 12 personnel. So you can't play 12 a lot if you only have 2 tight ends. You need a backup. So they're going to bring in somebody. And it, might be Jack Stoll, who got released by the Giants. So obviously there's familiarity there. But yeah, I think they've made their splash move at wide receiver. They're fine with what they have. It was just a matter of, do you want a placeholder that can maybe play some snap speed while Jahan Dotson gets up to speed.
Right. One game was Terrence Marshall got released by Carolina, former second-round pick. The Eagles seemingly like to kind of grab guys who have, had talent, high ceiling elsewhere. We'll see wide receivers that get released between now and the next 56 minutes. John, you mentioned the tight end spot. Jack Stoll, but that would be a spot you think they're going to still go. Albert O looks like injured and be out at least half the season.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised that, that might be a situation where they couldn't work out the injury settlement because it's a little bit more difficult. Because I was originally told they were just going to move on from Albert, but, they have to put him on injured reserve. I don't think that's about waiting for him to be healthy. I think it's just that he got hurt. He had to have surgery, and that's what you have to do, and maybe they can work out an injury settlement down the road. And then E.J. Jenkins, I think, was the one that a lot of people thought that maybe could make the team as the third tight end. But he's very young, very raw. I think he can get him back to the practice squad anyway, so you can build it that way. And they really need a blocker, which is why Stoll probably makes a lot of sense, because it's not that Dallas can't block. He's a very good blocker, but, he's also, you're kind of wasting him if he's got to be the guy that's playing inline all the time as a receiver. So, obviously, Grant Calcaterra, E.J. Jenkins, Albert Okwuegbunam, all of them are not blockers, so maybe they want more of that Stoll-like presence just to take a few snaps per game.
Yeah, we had Colin Thompson on earlier. Maybe he should get by the phone, right? Need a blocking tight end.
There we go. Yeah, blocking tight end.
John McMullen's with us. Eagles cut-down day is beginning, and obviously yesterday they made a couple of moves right after we got done talking, and one of the guys was Sharpring. He's out, one of the offensive linemen there. So I would imagine we kind of hit on this yesterday, but don't expect a lot of surprises today. But just because the 53 finishes today doesn't mean you're safe.
No, and that's why we call it, the savvy of us at least call it the initial 53. It's certainly not the final 53. That'll be in place later in the week. And even that, obviously, there's constant churn at the back of the roster as you go through the NFL season, whether it's you want to improve or it's just attrition, there's going to be constant sort of churn at the back of the roster. So, it's just initial, and obviously tight end would be the perfect example. I mean, they're only keeping 2. They're not going to play with 2 tight ends on the 53-man roster. So, right there's going to be at least one move before the week is over, once that initial 53 is put in place.
Yeah, you got yesterday Will Grier, not a surprise. Perry Nickerson and Julian Okwara, both those guys are, Nickerson has played in the league. Okwara, 9 sacks with Detroit, has been a guy who had some talent, 3rd-round pick. Not that we're surprised that they got released, but that kind of tells you a little bit about the depth on this roster.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, Howie made a big deal about the future signings this year. Okwara among them, guys like that. Terrell Lewis, who's also going to get waived. Derek Kennard, who probably is also going to get released. So But they're all practice squad candidates, and they might be back from that perspective. I don't know. After that Minnesota game, I got some questions about the depth, but it's interesting. I have more questions about the depth on the offensive side than the defensive side. So I think, obviously, the starters on the offensive side are off the charts, but I think there's some depth issues. And defensively, I think you got some problems with the starting 11, and I think the depth is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
So it's kind of turned upside down.
Well, we were talking about this. It might have been right after you got off yesterday, which was the Eagles liked their linebackers. We might have had this discussion, but they liked their linebackers. But what if they found a guy they liked more? They wouldn't have a guy that they really want to give up on, though.
Yeah, I know everybody, and Ernest Jones got traded to Tennessee, so that pipe dream is over. But, they were never going to look for an upgrade from that perspective, because they don't value the position, so they're not giving up assets. Howie's going to talk in a little bit. I'm driving down to talk to him. He can say what he wants, but actions speak louder than words when it comes to that perspective, and they just haven't valued the linebacker position. So they're not going to go out and bring in a meaningful piece. And then from the perspective of, I like the depth. I don't know if they have starters, but I like the depth. So it's not like they can't improve.
Yeah.
They can certainly improve. But typically when you're talking about the waiver wire and guys who get cut elsewhere, you're talking about improving depth. And I don't think they need to improve the depth. The time to get a starter was when they got Devin White and Zach Bond, and they made their decisions.
Yeah.
And we'll see how it holds up.
John McMullen, Birds 365, weekday mornings, 8 a.m. on the Jacob Media YouTube channel. Eagles cut down day. Yes, Roseman and Sirianni speaking at 4:15 today. I saw, Caleb Farley, former first-round pick, but at a corner spot. I mean, normally, again, this is kind of areas where Howie generally like, hey, you got a first-round pick who's on the street, we'll take a shot. But it seems that they like that room so much that they don't need to go down that road.
No, not even remotely. They're very, very deep at corner, and they're going to be moving on from corners that are probably NFL players and should be in the league. So they've remade that room, and that's not to say there's not going to be hiccups with the young players and Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean and Isaiah Rodgers after a year off, but they're very happy with that room, and no, they're not looking to add anybody there.
Nope, I would agree with you there. Obviously, John, they got a lot of time between 4 o'clock today and the start of that season, which is on that Friday night, which is a little less time than some of these other teams have. But at this stage, is the depth chart pretty much set for you as well? Do you think that they're pretty settled in, that the battles have been won, or is there still stuff that they're going to figure out between now and that Friday night?
No, I think they're set. They haven't really given the hint of who it's going to be a linebacker, whether it's going to be a rotation, but I think they know, and they're trying to keep that close to the vest. And yeah, everywhere else they're set from that standpoint.
Right.
At this stage, right or wrong, and that really nobody is debating who their starters are going to be. They might not be comfortable with their starters, and I'm not saying that about the Eagles, but they know across the league who they have to go with.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one of the things that'll be interesting to see is, starters, but also rotational playing time. That first Friday night, how much Nolan Smith are you getting? How much Jordan Davis are you getting? How much Milton Williams? Those are all things that will kind of materialize before your eyes, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And, somebody like Nolan Smith, he's going to be part of the rotation, and if he does well with what he's given, he might get a little bit more. And if he does poorly, he might get a little bit less, and you might see those changes. But I think the plan is in place of where you want to start, and obviously you tweak it from there. And I'm hitting the Walt Whitman Bridge, so there's always a dead spot in case you lose me for a second, but I'll be back.
I know Nick's talking, and so is Howie Roseman today, and I'm assuming the big stuff will be, about the guys who actually do get cut. But is there anything else that needs to kind of come out that you guys want to kind of find out about this team between now and then when you get one more chance to talk to Howie?
Hopefully we'll get more, but, probably not in public.
Right.
But obviously, first you want to talk about Dotson and the trade from that perspective, which is interesting because if you think about the role he's projected to have, I think some people look at it, well, he was the 16th pick in the draft, and you got him for a third-round pick, and you got a fifth-round pick back, and that's a lot for – it's like a car. The depreciation starts right away. So when you're a first-round pick and an unsuccessful one, especially for a role that's, not to be a starter, to be that third receiver complementary part of it, that's not, that's a lot to give up a third-round pick. And it's indicative that Howie believes that this is a Super Bowl team. So hearing him talk about that trade will be interesting. And then obviously how he builds this roster and the perspective of the new rules. I mean, this year the Eagles are taking advantage of the injured reserve rules with Sanaya Smith. I'm not sure what that means. I haven't seen the designation if they're going to designate Albert Guegmanon to return. That'll be interesting. I would be a little surprised if they do. But Howie has liked him since he traded for him last year, and he hasn't really shown or evidenced as why. But let's be honest, Mike. Sometimes ego gets in the way of these things.
By the way, the Eagles are releasing Brett Toth is coming out now as well. Is that a surprise?
No, if Nick Gates comes out, I think Nick Gates is going to make the team. And so far, he's still alive. And
hanging in there.
That might surprise. Yeah, that might surprise some people because he came in late, and they brought in Matt Hennessy, who got hurt, and they brought in Max Sharping, who started a lot of games, and then they brought in Gates, and he seems to be the guy who's kind of played well, taking the bull by the horns, and I think just if you look at the health of Mekhi Becton and the knee, and it seems to be nagging at times. And then you talk about Tyler Steen and his injury. You better have a plan B. Forget about plan A, plan B, maybe even a plan C in that interior of the offensive line. And Gates is the guy who started 30-something NFL games. He can play center. He can play both guard positions. And I always go back to that Super Bowl season when the Eagles had the young guy, Isaac Seumalo at the time, who was a second-year player, much like Tyler Steen is this year. They wanted him to win the job. They gave him the job at the start of the season. He didn't play well. And they replaced him with Chance Warmack, who didn't play well. And then they went to Stefan Wisniewski, who played well enough to start the Super Bowl, win a Super Bowl. So I think that's sort of the replication maybe that Howie's going for, that if Becton doesn't work, if Steen doesn't work, maybe Nick Gates will work.
Right, because Brett Toth would have been the backup center, right? That's kind of where he was working.
Yeah, and that's another, is Dylan McMahon going to make it as a 6th-round pick? Gates can play center, so you have some other options there. Todd's big thing is he's versatile. He can play every position on the offensive line. He's a natural left tackle. He's not a natural center. And he's taken a long time to learn the position, actually. So, and he had a bunch of snapping issues last year. So he's another guy that might be back on the practice squad, but they have other options at center, and Nick Gates can play the position.
All right, John. Well, Drive safe over the bridge. We didn't lose you in that dead spot. Roseman Sirianni in 1 hour with the updates. The rosters need to be in 42 minutes, and we'll have all the updates for you right here on the Sports Bash. John McMullen, weekday mornings, 8 a.m. on the Jacob Media YouTube channel with Birds 365. All right, John, we'll talk to you, buddy.
All right, Mike. And by the way, doing some business on the air, you're going to be there tomorrow morning, so we can talk about it. We can talk further about it.
We will have a firm finish of the roster. I will talk to you then.
All right. Thanks, bud.
All right. John McMullen, everybody, here on the Sports Bash. As always, on a 3 o'clock here on the Sports Bash, 3:18 to be precise, as we get you ready for the cut-down day. And he just talked about a couple of things. The one thing that kind of, Brett Toth is a guy who just got released. That's according to Andrew DeCecco, who just reported that out there. He was a guy who was pretty much bound to be the backup center. They brought in Nick Gates, so it looks like Gates is going to win that backup center job. And you might say, who the heck cares? But it is interesting because you do have a new center in there. You do have Cam Jurgens, and Cam Jurgens did get hurt last year. So Jurgens missed some time with injury last year, so you got to keep that under your cap.
Yeah, the two surprising things for me, Mike, about Brett Toth is, number one, when you're the guy getting the primary number 2 snaps, you're the primary guy handling the second team, and then they cut you. It's not like Nick Gates or Dylan McMahon was getting those snaps. So that's the number one surprising. Number 2, we know that Jeff Stoutland loves versatility. Toth is a guy who can play every spot on the line. Center, guard, tackle. So for them to let him go, that means they must be making some pretty tough decisions because he's a Stoutland guy.
Yeah, well, I somebody asked about this before. I think they have enough flexibility and depth for a couple of reasons. One, think about this. Now that you've got Becton playing right guard, I guess that gives you the ability to use a healthy Tyler Steen as a guy who can play tackle as well.
The Jack Driscoll role.
Yeah, I mean, he could be the guy who could play the swing tackle spots. He can also play that right guard, I guess, if you need him. Hennessy is also still here. He has also been a starting center in this league. So you got that going. You got Gates, who has played all across the line as well. So you do have some guys who offer some versatility.
But isn't it surprising that you wouldn't see at the training camp practices or in the preseason games Hennessy or Gates getting those major center reps?
I guess. I mean, I would think, and who knows? I mean, there could be closed times where they do things like that. And, of course, just between now and the start of the season, you have another 2 weeks in here really to kind of a little less.
I just find it a little weird that you say, hey, we're going to give you all these opportunities at a job, and then say, you know what, someone else can do it.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, sometimes you'll say, listen, you want to compete for a starting job? Go ahead. And if you don't win that job, then we're going to move you to where we want you. So we'll give you a chance to win that job. But if you don't win it, then you're going to do what we want you to do.
So you're saying that maybe the turn to Toth is, look, this is your shot. You got 3 weeks. Make or break it.
Hey, listen, that's the way I run my practices. I'll tell the kids, hey, go to the position you want to play. And after about 2 weeks of that, if you don't win that job, we're going to start moving people around. But we're going to give you a chance to play the position you want. Like you might play on a team and somebody's dad's the coach and they're playing shortstop on that team and they move the other guy. Well, we don't have that. Hey, dad's not coaching this team. So you go to the position that you think you should play. That could be like this. Hey, coach, I know I played center in Atlanta, but I see a right guard opportunity here. Can I be in play for that right guard? Sure. Go to play right guard. We'll give you 2 weeks. But after the 2 weeks, if you don't win the position, now we're going to start moving you around because we need you to fill in some holes elsewhere.
That might be the only thing you and Nick Sirianni have in common.
What's that?
That's your strategy.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people, you're looking for the best players at every position. May the best man win the job.
Sure.
So if you say Matt Hennessy signs here and says, hey, coach, I'll sign here, but I want to be given a shot to win the right guard position. I want that opportunity to win the right guard position. And if I don't win it, I can help you out in other areas too. I can see that happening. Now, I think, as John said, last week, the media doesn't get to see the practices anymore. What do they do at linebacker? What do they do across the offensive line? What are they going to do, in the secondary room? I watched Cooper DeJean a lot last week, and I wonder if he can hang in that slot for a full season. That's a tough spot for him, man.
I don't know if he's going to be ready. anytime soon for that job.
Phillies lineup is out. Let's get that to you here on the Sports Bash. It's brought to you by Clark's Moving and Storage. Rio Grande moving to Breeze with Clark's Moving and Storage. It's a lineup tonight that looks pretty familiar for most people out there. I'll share it with you if you're watching the video at Mike Gill Show on the X platform. Use the hashtag SB Live. For those of you watching there, you see the lineup. It is Schwarber, Turner, Harper, Bohm, Castellanos, Stott, Real Muto, Marsh, and Hayes. Pretty much the same lineup as last night. Aaron Nola gets the start for the Phillies tonight. There you go. No Rojas tonight, and they're facing a right-handed pitcher, so I'm not surprised by that. But you could go with Marsh in left and Rojas in center and give Hayes a day off. But
You could.
Hayes has had a bunch of days off because he was hurt, so you probably got to try to get him back and going. But that's, people are starting to wonder there. You got to find ways to get Rojas in the lineup now. Who would have thought you'd ever be asking that question?
Should have been asking it sooner, I say.
All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, streaming live video on the X platform. At Mike Gill Show, use the hashtag SB Live. Concert goers, if you're a fan of the concert, I got questions for you, and I got answers for you. That's coming up next on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3.
You're listening with Mike Gill.
When I'm driving, I got a guy on the radio who talks to me. I can't see him, but he talks to me.
On 97.3 ESPN.
3:31 Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget, football at 4 is in 29 minutes from now. The Eagles will have their cutdowns down, finalized. 4:15 today. Roseman and Sirianni are going to talk. We'll get you the Cliff Notes. According to Jeff McClain, it looks like James Bradbury is going to make the final roster. His transition to safety has been slow, but they want to keep him around. The Eagles are on the hook for his salary. So Bradbury's a name to watch there. I think Avonte Maddox is a name to watch there. I think you also look at guys like Eli Ricks, Josh Jobe, what happens to those guys there. So we'll keep an eye on that. All right, I told you guys earlier today. So I had this sent to me by a buddy of mine because he must have got it on social media, and then he said, do you remember the first concert that we saw together? And I said, I think that was the first concert. In fact, I know it was the first concert. So it's a series of 10 questions. All right? First concert I ever went to. Do you remember yours?
The first concert I ever went to was a Christian rock band was called Newsboys.
Newsboys?
Yeah.
Like, is that like a local band or is that like a national artist? Because I remember somebody gave me they saw like some local band as like the first concert thing. Was that you? That doesn't count.
No, it wasn't.
I'm talking about like a national recording artist.
I actually know who you're talking about who said that, and yeah, he used to work with us.
Okay. All right. Well, the first concert that I ever went to is Stone Temple Pilots at the Mann Music Center.
That's cool.
Okay. First
STP.
one. Yeah. Last concert, the most recent concert I've been to. I had to think about this because I haven't been to a lot of concerts in the last X amount of years. But the last concert I was at is Bare Naked Ladies at Ocean Casino.
I remember you talking about that concert.
Yep. Do you remember yours?
It's been a long time since I've been to a legitimate concert, so it would have to be I went to Usher and T.I. at the Boardwalk Hall.
Ooh. Worst concert you've ever seen?
I haven't been to enough concerts, so this one I'm going to fail on. So,
well, I'm going to go with a duplicate answer, but not with the same singer.
Okay.
The new STP.
The new version.
The new singer with not Scott Weiland. The first time I saw STP, they were awesome.
Right.
Weiland, it was a showman. He was awesome. The new singer, Jeff Goot, not good.
Not a good name either.
No. That was the worst. I think that goes down as the worst concert I've been. It wasn't so bad. It was such a disappointment next to Scott Weiland.
Right.
Okay? The loudest concert you've ever been to. This one is almost not even close. There's two in the running here. Okay?
Okay.
One was Foo Fighters.
Really?
And the other one was Audio Slave at the Electric Factory. Was probably the loudest concert I've ever been to.
I can see Audio Slave. Foo Fighters surprises me.
Yeah.
For me, it was Disturbed because the acoustics at Boardwalk Hall, it really amplified the sound.
Mm-hmm. I like Boardwalk Hall. I've seen The Who there, and I saw Aerosmith there.
I've seen three concerts at Boardwalk Hall. So.
Great venue. Electric Factory, though, Audio Slave. I mean, you got Chris Cornell belting out lyrics in the Electric Factory.
Love
I mean,
that.
it was something else, man.
That must have been an experience.
Yeah. Best concert you've ever been to?
I have to say the Usher concert because the dude was singing and dancing the entire time. And at one point, he brought a lady onto the stage and started serenading her in the middle of the concert. I mean, the dude put on a pretty impressive concert.
Well, I mean, listen, I've been to some shows, that you would probably be surprised by, and you could see why. Like, they put on some pretty damn good performances. Like Mariah Carey, by the way. She, brought the house down. And the amount of changes and stuff, unbelievable.
That's what always interests me. Like, the amount of time some of these people change their outfits for each song, each performance.
Not my answer for best concert, though.
No.
Radiohead was the best concert I've ever seen.
Okay.
It was the $2 Bill Y'all show at the Beacon Theater in New York City.
$1 Bill Y'all?
It was pretty darn good, I got to say. Have you one of the categories, number 6, is seen the most. So you got those people out there that are like Parrot Heads,
Deadheads,
the Deadheads, the Fish People, the Dave Matthews Crew.
Who are the people that you have seen multiple times?
Well, Radiohead I've seen 3 times, and Dave Matthews I've seen 3 times. So that would be the winner of this one. They're the only bands that I've seen multiple times. Radiohead I've seen 3 times, and Dave Matthews I've seen 3 times.
Okay. Now, of those two,
I'm a big Radiohead fan.
But who did a better job at multiple performances?
Radiohead played more of a variety because I saw them on different album tours.
Okay.
Like Dave Matthews, I think by the time I had seen them, he was kind of done putting new
Albums
stuff out. So he was kind of doing. But Radiohead, I saw him do multiple different albums that they were supporting.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. All right, number 7, I don't have an answer to yet. It's most surprising. So I don't have an answer for that one yet. I got to keep thinking about that. I've been thinking about that one all day. Most surprising concert I've been to.
Yeah, I don't have a good one for that either.
I saw 311. I like that show a lot.
Didn't you go to a country concert that was way better than you thought it would be?
Oh, you know what? The Blink-182 show on the beach was really good.
Okay.
I saw that 2 summers ago. The country concert, I'm just not a country fan.
Right, but I remember you saying it was better than you expected.
Okay, I could say that's surprising. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I was surprised that I was...
Because I remember you came in that Monday and you said, I was pleasantly surprised how much fun that you had.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. And I was there with some good friends and stuff, and that helped out. But I'm just not a country fan. I just don't understand the allure. I don't get it at all.
I'm not anti-country. It's just not my go-to.
No, it's just not for me. Happy I got to see. Do you have one of those in your wheelhouse?
I have to say the Usher concert I was happy to see because of the fact that I never thought that concert was going to be as entertaining as it was.
Which one?
Usher.
Again with the Usher. Is that the only concert you've seen? I know this isn't the best game for you here.
I have been to 4 concerts.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay, so what are the 4?
So Usher and T.I. Well, T.I. opened for Usher.
Okay.
I saw Disturbed.
Right.
And it was just Disturbed.
I've seen Disturbed, by the way.
I've seen the Newsboys.
It's just not my bag, but I've seen them. Just not a lot of depth there.
Yeah. Well, at the time I saw them, they were about 5 albums in, so they had enough to draw off of for their own concert.
Okay.
And then I mentioned my first concert was Newsboys.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, they're from Australia.
Okay.
So, and then I also saw, dagnabbit, what's his name? Toby Mac in concert.
Don't know who that is.
He's like a.
So now I know why your every answer has been Usher.
Pretty much.
That makes sense now.
It does make sense.
So this one is number 7, most surprising. I could go with your. I don't even remember who I saw.
I don't remember. Yeah, I remember you
in the
came
country
in
concert.
on
I
that
don't
Monday.
remember who it was.
But you went and you saw it, and you were like, you know what, that was better than I expected.
I was surprised that I was like, I knew as many songs as I did, like that I've heard of.
Right.
You know,
were actually like
now I would
with.
say if I hung out there all day, I probably wouldn't. This was like the main act.
The main event.
Yeah. Oh, that Blink-182 show, I forgot about that. That one was, all right, Happy I Got to See. Now, I would say that Blink-182 and The Return is in the category, would be in the running here. But Happy I Got to See, I have a lot here. I saw Foo Fighters. That concert was awesome. First 4 songs out of the gates. I don't know how he didn't pass out. I mean, just high energy, just kept on going and going. Saw Billy Joel in Pittsburgh. That
cool.
show was really cool. Saw a bunch of stuff like in that late 90s, 2000 era because I was working at a rock station. Like I said, 311. But a lot of the music then I just wasn't that big. I was a big fan of Our Lady Peace at the time.
Okay.
Saw them play. But I'm happy I got to see Zwan. And now there's a reason for this, too. Because obviously, well, I say obviously. A lot of people might not even know Zwan or heard of him. That was Billy Corrigan, was the lead singer of Zwan when the Pumpkins fell apart.
Right.
And I still have not got to see the Pumpkins.
You would have, but.
Yes. So Zwan, I'm happy I got to see them because I did get to see Billy Corrigan perform live in person.
That's cool, though.
Yeah. That concert was pretty good. They only had one album. It was a little run for them, and then they were done.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Wish I could have seen. I always said if I could have seen one concert, it would have been The Doors.
Interesting.
I would have loved to see Jim Morrison in action.
This one's easy for me. It would have been DMX.
Up in here?
Up in here, you know the whole. I mean, just give me full DMX, all the albums, all the discography, just going all out. I would have loved that.
Okay. Music that surprised me, and I liked it.
Like the concert music or just like general music?
I guess the concert. These are all concert-related questions. So I'm going concert here.
Gotcha.
Music that surprised me, and I liked it. Now, I knew the music, but I was surprised at the performance and the fact that I was as entertained as I was.
Okay.
Was Christina Aguilera.
Interesting.
She was unbelievable. And this was like 40-year-old Christina Aguilera.
Right, not young Christina
Yeah,
Aguilera.
she wasn't doing the dirty era. This was Christina Aguilera about my age. And she was still bringing it, man. And that voice is, to hear her voice in person, that's something different, man. Her voice is unreal.
Yeah, that I can imagine how that must have been like, whoa.
It was pretty unbelievable. So there you go. There was the list of stuff. Now, most surprising, I got to keep thinking of that one, but that one is not bad, the country. Now, some people texted in, BC from Bowers Beach said the last concert is Noel Gallagher at Stage EAE in Pittsburgh. You know, Oasis is getting back together.
Are they really?
They are. They just announced, I guess, over the weekend that they had an announcement, and it's that they're going to get back together next year. Those two, the brothers, hate each other. That's been a big story. I was a big Oasis fan.
I was going to say, how's that going to work?
We'll see. I was in London, and people were talking about will they ever get back together and how much they hate
in
each
London.
Other. Yeah, well, they're from over there. I mean, they're a big deal over there. But somehow it came up when we were eating breakfast one morning.
Okay,
and it was like, oh, those brothers, they hate each other. But BC and Bowers Beach, last concert you've been to was Noel Gallagher. Was he playing? I guess he was playing by himself because the brother and him they don't speak.
Yeah, I was going to assume he's just by him, like the solo act.
Worst concert, he says, Billy Ray Cyrus in West Virginia. You know what? I got to say, another one that was I have seen, and somewhere it might go on this list, I saw Rusted Root play in the Nyabingi Dance Hall in Morgantown, West Virginia, which is about the size of Giuliano's in Egg Harbor Township. But think about that. Rusted Root just showed up and started playing there.
I mean, you're just like squeezing sardines in there. Then.
Yeah, it's tiny in that place there. Monday Marcus, first concert was Tony Braxton, who I didn't know was opening for Kenny G, who I never heard at the time. That's a
wild combo.
He also, the last concert was Patti LaBelle 2 years ago at the Trop.
Kenny G was in Ocean City.
Patti
this
LaBelle's
summer.
voice, by the way, that's got to be something to hear in person.
I know Kenny G was in Ocean City this summer.
Was he?
Yeah.
Jeff in Ocean City says, I had 2 tickets to see my first Grateful Dead show on September 7th, 1995 at the Spectrum. Jerry Garcia died August 9th, 1995. Never got to the show. That's a tough one there. I remember the day that Jerry Garcia died. I was working with people who were like in tears, like had to go home from work.
I can believe that.
Matt in Delaware went to see Cypress Hill in 311 in Philly about 10 years ago. That's a good show. Yeah, Hits from the Bong, dude. 311, I actually introduced 311 on stage at the old Shell at the Trump Marina.
Good for you.
Yeah, this was, like 2001.
That must have been an experience.
Yeah, there was a run there where like Papa Roach played.
That's my era.
Three Doors Down, Nickelback, POD, Our Lady Peace. They all played like right there at the
I love
Shell.
Like every other band you name, it's like I love that band. I hate that band. I love that band.
That
I
was
hate
a
that
bad
band.
era of music.
It was a weird era.
It was a really bad like that. Post grunge was not good.
Like I was really big into Linkin Park when I was younger.
I figured that. I can peg you at that.
Like I was very big on like the Linkin Park, DMX, Ja Rule, Limp Bizkit, all like that, like 99, 2000.
Yeah, that was just not for me, man. Not for me. But there you go. You guys can keep texting in 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. I'll give you the categories if you want to chime in on one of them. We can kind of pluck them throughout the show and just kind of have a little fun with that. On a day where the Eagles' cut-down day is here, 4 o'clock, they got to get down. First concert, last concert, worst concert, loudest concert, best concert. Which band have you seen the most, or which artist have you seen the most? Most surprising concert. Happy you got to see this band. Wish you could have seen this band. And a concert that surprised you that you liked it. I got to give some shouts, too. Like, I had some tough decisions to make here. Like, I saw OAR a couple times. A big fan of OAR. Man, I had an era there where I was going to a lot of shows. So I got to try to think back in my mind of someone that I might have forgot.
My buddy Nick from high school, he's a big OAR guy.
Yep, I met the guys.
Did you?
Very nice guys, yeah.
That's good.
First concert, Mike, was lit. House of Blues in Atlantic City. I think I was at that show.
It doesn't surprise me.
My Own Worst Enemy. It's the only song they had.
Doesn't surprise me considering some of the other concerts you've already mentioned.
Well, I mean, remember, I was working at a station.
That's what I mean. When you're working at a music station, you're going to get opportunities to see music whether you like it or not.
How about this? Incubus. Seen them the most and seeing them tonight. Where the hell are Incubus playing?
What?
Yeah. Best concert, Paul McCartney played for 3.5 hours. That's almost too long.
Yeah, I feel like that's like, I need like a caffeine shot or something.
Paul from Northfield. All right, more Sports Bash coming up. If you want to text in yours, we'll read them off on the other side. Plus, the Eagles' cutdowns continue. 609-403-0973. Don't forget, Football at 4 is coming up with Adam Kaplan in about 12 minutes.
The Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
3:53, 7 minutes till Football at 4. This hour of the show brought to you by Broadlee's Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning, your trusted source for heating, plumbing, service, installation for generations. Call 609-390-3907. John McMullen joined us with updates on the Eagles. He was brought to you by Boardwalk Honda. Shop their lineup of new, pre-owned, and certified pre-owned Hondas online at boardwalkhonda.com. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. Somebody texted in that Lit had other songs. Lipstick and Bruises was one of them. And the other one, I can't even remember, but he was right. They did have more than just the one song. I'll give that guy 2 points.
2 points for that guy.
Yeah, Lipstick and Bruises was one, and Miserable was the other.
There you go.
Yep. Mike worked at concessions at the Vet in the mid-'90s. I'm so glad I had the opportunity to see Pink Floyd, Elton John, Billy Joel's, all excellent. Matt in Sicklerville. Yeah, those all sound like good shows. This guy said he wishes he could have seen AC/DC. That would be a very high-energy show.
That'd be fun.
Most surprising, David Violin. Guns N' Roses, Louder Than Life. They were an hour late to the stage, but they sounded great. Energy was great. Crowd was great. They played for over 3 hours.
That's a long concert.
Also says he saw Shinedown 7 times, not because I'm obsessed, but they tour a lot, and they're phenomenal line. Foo Fighters is my favorite band. Saw them twice, once driving 5 hours to see with Kendrick Lamar. That's an interesting pairing.
Whoa. I go to that concert.
Yeah. This guy said he saw Rammstein 17 times.
That's commitment.
Yep. Also, his first concert was Insane Clown Posse. He said, don't ask. I won't. All right, more Sports Bash coming up. Football at 4. The Eagles roster has to be done in 4 minutes from now. Stick around.
City 97.3 ESPN presents the Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4 with Adam Kaplan, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast.
I give my heart and soul to this franchise, as so many of us do.
Now live, this is Football at 4.
Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and of course Adam Kaplan on a Tuesday. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary. At Bet365, Mike Gill and the Sports Bash. You can watch the show live on our X platform at Mike Gill Show. Use the hashtag SBLive. We've got the Eagles cut downs. They should be official now. We'll see if there's a surprise in the mix here. It doesn't sound like a surprise in the mix is coming, but we will take a look as this has to be finalized at 4 o'clock today. A couple interesting names out there. It looks like Patrick Robinson is going to make the list for the roster for the Eagles. And don't forget, this is the final, not the final. This is just the 53. It's the initial 53-man roster. It's just the initial 53-man roster. It is not the final 53-man roster. And we will dive into some of that right now with Adam Kaplan from the Inside the Birds podcast as he joins us here on another edition of Football at 4 on the Sports Bash. Adam, how are you, sir?
I'm good, yeah. So it's been an interesting day. You know, I've covered the cut down day to 53, and you're right, Mike. It's never ever final. It's got called the fluid 53. You have to initially be at 53, and then you can't go over that number for the rest of the season. Now, of course, you can go under it. There's roster manipulation that's going to happen, Mike. We've got the practice squads tomorrow. Usually around 1 Eastern is when you could start filling it out. But the cut down to 53, IR moves, PUP moves, NFI moves, they all have to be made. We'll see what happens. Yeah, the Eagles have not released it yet. I just checked. I look at my text here in my email, and I've talked to some agents today. There'll be some interesting things that are going to happen. The Eagles may be bringing some familiar faces back. We will see that we're with them in the past, depending on whether these players become available or not from other teams.
Yeah, and before we kind of go through the roster real quick and kind of see what's left over here, other teams are making moves too, so that's why we say the initial, because you might get down to 53 and then see somebody you like on the street and bring them in. I don't know how closely you've been watching, if there's any names that have been kind of eye-opening out there yet, but that's something that the Eagles will get down to 53 as they're scouring what else has kind of hit the streets.
Yeah, so basically what happens is teams are monitoring, believe this or not, because I've talked to a couple GMs last week, they have... If they're not monitoring social media, people under them are. So they want to know who's been cut, who's been traded. The earlier they know that, the easier it is to plan for this day-to-day. And also, who is waived, that's a big thing, because waiver claims, there's usually between 20 and 30 players are claimed off waivers on the day after the roster cuts. 1 year there was only like 13 or 14. But he averages generally, I'm told, 20 to 30. 30 is a little bit high, but it has happened before. It just depends on the year. But yeah, Mike, that's exactly what's happening. Teams are monitoring this stuff. And what will happen is, and it's really bad, and agents have to be careful of this, they'll tell a reporter, oh yeah, my guy made the 53, only to be waived the next day when the team claims players. So it's a very odd thing. You got to be very careful.
And the Eagles are keeping James Bradberry on the 53. So let's kind of start there, because I don't know if that's a huge surprise. But you can kind of go a little further on that. Bradberry is on the initial 53. What could be happening, you said, for now?
Yeah, so what I'm told with his contract is that for cap purposes, he's got a fully guaranteed option bonus. For cap purposes, they have till Tuesday of week 1 to exercise it, which they'll do, just for cap purposes, just to save money. Again, now the other thing is, and they could always exercise it, then cut him. And here are all the moves, Mike. Here are the moves, Mike, as we speak. Burks cut, Campbell cut, Gates, Greer, Hennessy, Nickerson, Aquara, John Ross, Sharping, Toth, waived, Donkwa, Ayadze, Davis Price, the running back, Gabe Hall, Jacob Harris injured, wave injured. Josh Jobe was cut, and of course we expected that. Joseph Ngata was hurt. We didn't know that. He was wave injured. Caden Stearns was waived with a non-football injury. He could be back, and as I expected to happen, Sidney Brown was not activated off of PUP. Mike, on IR were Albert O and Anais Smith. So nothing, Mike, just so you understand, anyone who covers this team is rarely surprised by anything. Now, I will tell you, though, it's a small surprise. For now, Eli Ricks is on the team. For now. Again, I said for now.
Yes, Eli Ricks on the team for now. I have the email as well with the names out so we can kind of pick on. Oren Burks did not make the team. A lot of people thought that, he played well throughout this preseason and had the, experience that he was good enough to make the team. We've been talking a lot about the linebackers and where they are. It seems that the Eagles like the 5 guys. They don't have a guy that's maybe that standout one, but they seemingly like all 5 of the guys to the point that a guy like Burks, who has some experience, did not have a spot.
The problem with Burks is, Mike, is he got hurt. And he came back, for about 2 weeks. It's just he was in a tough spot. I look at my 53 that I had. I had him off the roster. I had the 5 that made it. I did not have Paris Campbell on it. He didn't make it. But getting back to inside backer, it's all about developing players. And Ben Van Sumeren has shown, and we reported this at the time, that when he played he had that great game against the Giants. When I say great, we had another team tell us, Mike, that when they because there was a future team that the Eagles were playing after the Giants, they were kind of shocked because they didn't think he was even worth having on a team based on the way he played at Michigan State because he's so raw. He was so explosive that game. And then we had, of course, Greg Cosell from NFL Films who worked for us who came on and said, wow, I didn't know much about Van Sumeren, but his tape was really good. So good for the Eagles to keep him and let him develop.
Yeah, there's some other names, too. Let's get your thoughts on no Paris Campbell. For a while there, he looked like he was going to be the third receiver on this team. He went from third to out. Also, John Ross, another wide receiver who got released.
So, a couple things on Paris Campbell. We reported at the time the Eagles signed him that he was benched for practice participation for performances with the Giants. That's exactly why they cut him. He was actually benched. He actually had a bad practice, and Daboll told him to get off. They told the coach to get him off the field, and he just was in. You heard Mike his press conference maybe a month ago. And he was very open about. He was down in the dumps about what happened last season, and he had to get his confidence back. He just didn't perform, Mike. No, he could. Practice squad's certainly possible. You could have up to 6 veterans on there. They need a veteran receiver on the practice squad. I mean, it would definitely help them. But that was not a surprise at all. The only one is Brett Toth. Now he's contract terminated because he's actually vested. But here's the question I would ask the Eagles: this: who is their backup center? Because Matt Hennessy, as we expected, was also cut. I mean, I get it that McMahon is on the roster, but he can't be serious. He cannot be. He's not ready. He's not ready. If Cam Jurgens gets hurt, he cannot be the starting center. Well, no way.
McMahon got waived.
Was he cut? Was McMahon cut?
He was waived, yes. Dylan McMahon was cut. Sharping and Hennessy were both released as well. Nick Gates, by the way, and Gates got released, and Brett Toth.
Yeah, so here's the deal. Here's the deal. By the way, I had McMahon not on the team, not on my 53. Actually, I did. It's one of the best 53s I've done. I'm shocked that I got this many right. I only got like 2 or 3 wrong, but they've got an option here. Okay, Gates is not eligible for waivers. He's a vested veteran. Mosher said this to me 20 minutes ago. I thought this was a great point. Just put him on your practice squad. Now, you only have 3 practice squad elevations, but what they can do is let him practice during the week, elevate him on Saturday, Mike, from the practice squad. For the first 3 weeks, if they like the way he looks, then you have to sign him off there to get him on your roster. And they could always do that, Mike. So you don't really need to have anyone else on your roster who could play center right now, but you're going to need him by week 1. That has to happen. Now, in an emergency, Dickerson could do it if he needed to in game because he's done it. But I think the big disappointment here, Mike, is that Matt Hennessy never worked out. I'm a little surprised. I'm not surprised he was cut. It was obvious about a month ago it wasn't working out. I'm just surprised that he just never could catch on. Then he had a minor injury. He was limping around at practice for a bit, but yeah, McMahon didn't make it, Mike. I did not have him in my 53. I thought he's way too small, and he needs to get stronger physically. It's and we as you know, Mike, because you and Jeff talked about it yesterday. This misnomer, like, oh yeah, Roseman doesn't cut his draft picks. No, that's false. He's cut 6 players. The highest drafted player he's ever cut when he's had personnel control was that quarterback back in 2019.
Yeah, Caleb Thorson.
Yeah, Thorson, right. So, and by the way, he refused to sign with the Eagles practice squad. If you remember, he signed with Dallas, which pissed the Eagles off. But Howie's cut 6 when he's made the call. But yeah, when you look at it, they're a little bit light on the offensive line.
Well, I was going to say you cut Gates, Hennessy, Sharping, and Brett Toth. That's 4 guys who all, you could have said one of those guys could have been your backup center. Now none of those guys are here.
Mike, so right now, let's extrapolate. Fred Johnson's your backup left. Steen could be a backup tackle, or he could obviously play right guard, which he will. One guy we had on the roster, I think all me, Andrew, and Jeff had, Jaron Kennard as a backup right tackle. Right now he is. Gates is off. Toth is off. Poe is off. Yeah, I think they have, let's see, Keegan, they have 9 guys on their offensive line, so I had 10. Keegan's right now a one-position player. He's only been a left guard. He has not taken any reps at right guard or center. So that's it, Mike. I mean, it's nothing really earth-shattering.
What about McCollum making the team?
I had him on my 53. Here's why. Absolutely ace special teams player. And here's what one person told me. His brother Zion is on Tampa. It's one of their top 3 outside corners. Yes, he's a tall safety at just under 6'3", but he can play corner if you need him to. And he was on their practice squad all of last season, Mike, and he actually got activated, I think, for a week or 2. They like the kid. This is a good find for the Eagles. He had a very good training camp. The coaches will tell you, as they've told me and personnel people, guys play themselves on the roster and off of it. You kind of know by the end of training camp, Mike, who should be on this team. Are you going to make a mistake sometimes? Absolutely. They don't give the answers to the tests till these guys actually play. But I didn't have E.J. Jenkins on it. He's a developmental player. You can't see, Mike. You can't put him on your roster and think, okay, he's ready to dress game day. He's not ready yet. He needs a little bit more work. But boy, he did a nice job. By the way, he's also subject to waivers.
All right. They only have 2 tight ends currently on this roster. Jack Stoll is on the streets. Donald Parham is also on the streets, who played with Kellen Moore last year. So which one makes more sense if they brought in a tight end? A guy who was here in Philly last year, or a guy who played in Moore's offense last year?
Parham. Here's why. Not only that, he's also 6'8". I was with the Chargers, I'm going to say 3 weeks ago, and I've been to their training camp since Parham was signed some years ago.
2020.
He looks like a basketball.
Yep.
He looks like a basketball player. I mean, he is a legit 6'8".
Yep.
And yeah, that would make more sense. Now, I am told with Jack Stoll, who was cut this morning, that he would be open. You should know this. We reported at the time that 2 teams offered him a deal, the Giants and the Eagles. He opted for the Giants because at the time it was really just Daniel Bellinger, and he knew that Darren Waller was going to retire. And what happened was, Mike, he didn't know that they were going to sign Chris Manhertz, who's one of the best blocking tight ends in the National Football League. It's the only reason that he's in the league, he can block. And also he didn't know they were going to draft Theo Johnson. So that he was out of a job, and we're not. Mike, that makes the most sense. Parham Jr. is a blocking tight end. He could catch a little bit, but he's an inline tight end. They need one in a big way. That's why, if you remember, over the years, they would always seem to have some guy, Noah Tungiai, you might remember him, Jack Stoll, who, and by the way, Jack Stoll was a roommate, believe it or not, most people don't know this, of Cam Jurgens in Nebraska.
There you go. 5 receivers for now. What do you make of that?
That's what I think. Let me see if did I have that. Yes, I had that. We knew Ngata wouldn't make it anyway. He was wave injured, so he'll go to IR, and they could either keep him on there or they could reach injury settlement. So Johnny Wilson, now here's the thing. Now he's got a concussion. He's got to get cleared. Jacob Harris, our injury to Checo, reported, he had a couple of pretty significant injuries. So, you feel concerned about that. This is where Paris Campbell just going to the practice squad makes the most sense because he knows the scheme. Or anyone else, Mike, who's played for Kellen Moore over the years. How about Noah Brown, Mike? Noah Brown, who I believe was cut by the Texans today.
Yeah, he was cut by the Texans as well. So that's the next thing now. The Eagles 53 is complete. It is not finalized because now they'll start kicking the tires around the streets. And there was a trade today, by the way. Ernest Jones got traded to the Titans. So that whole story was weird. He requested a trade, then he said he didn't request a trade. Well, guess what? You got traded. So that happened today. So things are continuing to happen. And, of course, we'll be keeping our eye on that here on Football at 4. But I guess there's some notable guys who did make the Eli Ricks made the team. That was another guy.
Yeah, that one surprised me. All right, I'll admit he was not on my 53. I got to figure this one out. And I know he was a great story last year, but man, as soon as this new staff came in, they demoted him. I mean, it's for the first time, and I don't know how many years, Mike, the Eagles actually have depth at corner. I don't really understand it. It's unlikely he'll dress most weeks. Now, what we have not seen, Mike, is their first injury report is due Tuesday, not a week from today, because you have to have it out 3 days before the game. So they play Friday night, so they have to have injury report Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And the reporters, as you know, they don't get to watch practice. They get to watch the individual drills, the warm-ups for 20 minutes. So we won't know for sure until we see if there's anybody hurt. I think I don't quite understand it. We need to look into why they have so many outside corners. Now, part of it, Mike, is they're trying to figure out where Cooper DeJean is going to line up. That they don't know that yet. We think he's more of a nickel, but we'll learn more as we go along.
Well, yeah, they kept 3 running backs, 2 tight ends, and 5 wide receivers. So they went light at a couple skill spots and added, as you mentioned, in the secondary. They only got the 4 safeties, one of which, Bradbury, is learning the spot there. They do have Maddox, and I guess Swings can play both. So they kept a little extra at certain spots and went light. Only the 3 running backs, only the 2 tight ends, 5 wide receivers. So fluid, I would say, is what we have with this roster.
Yeah, we always call it the fluid 53. It never stays the same. Initially, you have to be a 53, but you could start cutting guys tomorrow. And we'll see if they claim anyone off waivers. That's why I think with Eli Ricks, the guy. Now I'll give you this before we get out of here. Yep. We're also doing a show for Patreon, which is really going to be cool in about a half an hour. But the guys you got to watch out for, whether they'll be on the roster the next 2 or 3 days, would be Eli Ricks. This is depending on waiver claims. And guys, positions to be added, by the way, Mike, going forward, would be wide receiver. I would say wide receiver right now would be a position to keep an eye on because whether it's a waiver claim or a veteran, but again, Paris Campbell could go to the practice squad. They're going to have to do something at receiver for that. Now, defensive line, it went, according to Hoyle, it went exactly the way we thought it would. Gabe Hall never showed up in training. It just never happened. Boy, they have a pretty strong practice squad guarantee for him. You would expect him to go back there. And also defensive tackle for the practice squad is something we expect him to take a look at. But, again, Ricks is the guy to keep an eye on if they have some claims tomorrow.
All right, good stuff. Adam Kaplan here as the Eagles get down to 53, but not a final 53. That remains fluid until the start of the season, which is September the 6th. You can listen to the game right here on 97.3 ESPN. Adam Kaplan, everybody. Thanks, bud.
Thank you.
There's Adam, and, of course, Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Football at 4 is brought to you by Bet365, whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. So here you go. Here's the final 53. I'll read it for you guys, and you can kind of give your own thoughts on what this team now looks like as they get to the 53. Hurts, Pickett, McKee are the quarterbacks. I would think that Pickett and Hurts will be the 2 game day activations. Barkley, Gainwell, Shipley are your running backs. They did not keep a 4th guy, which not all that surprising. I don't see Gainwell and Shipley having big roles, so a 4th guy wouldn't have that big of a role either. Brown, Smith, Dotson, Johnny Wilson, and Britton Covey are the 5 wide receivers they kept. I would imagine they're going to add a receiver at some point there. Dallas Goedert, Grant Calcaterra are the 2 tight ends. Don't be surprised if they look for another tight end. This is where they went a little light. Mailata, Dickerson, Juergens, Becton, Lane Johnson, and the backups are Tyler Steen, Trevor Keegan, Fred Johnson, and Darian Kennard. They got rid of Hennessy. They got rid of Gates. They got rid of Brett Toth. They got rid of the McMahon, the draft pick, and there was another guy that got drafted. They got rid of, Sharping. They got rid of every guy that's ever snapped a ball before behind them. So they don't really have a backup center on the roster. At defensive tackle, Davis, Carter, Williams, Tui Pelotu, Moro Njomo, and Thomas Booker. They kept 6 tackles. Bryce Huff, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Nolan Smith, Jalix Hunt, Patrick Johnson. They kept 6 edge rushers. Nakobe Dean, Devin White, Zach Bond, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., and Ben Van Sumeren. They kept 5 linebackers. Slay, Mitchell, Ringo, DeJean, Isaiah Rodgers, Eli Ricks, Avante Maddox. They kept 7 corners. 4 safeties, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Reed Blankenship, James Bradbury, Tristan McCollum. And then Elliott, the punter, by the way, is Braden Mann, for those of you who weren't aware. Braden Mann, and Rick Lovato is the long snapper. That is the 53 of the Philadelphia Eagles. Roseman, Sirianni. We'll keep an eye on that. Plus Frank at 5. Knicks Nuggets are up next here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, and streaming live video on the X platform at Mike Gill Show. Use the hashtag SB Live.
We have the traffic.
You come with me.
The Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
All right, Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, streaming live video on the X platform. At Mike Gill Show, use the hashtag SB Live. Nick Earnshaw has Knicks Nuggets coming up in just a couple of moments here on the Sports Bash. They're brought to you by Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. Get your game on at the Gallery. Bar Booking Games. We were there yesterday. We'll be there every Monday, except for this Monday. We'll be there Tuesday because of the holiday. So we'll be at Ocean Tuesday the 3rd, not Monday the 2nd. That's at the Gallery. Bar Booking Games. Go to Ocean. Go for the win. For more, visit oceanac.com. All right, it's another edition of Knicks Nuggets here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Nick Earnshaw is host of the Shift podcast and Weekends in the Locker Room with Billy Schweim here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, Nick Earnshaw, what's up, buddy?
Nice to see you, Mike. It was a good night last night. Now you got the Eagles. They go down to the 53-man here at 4 o'clock. Some interesting surprises. The Eli Ricks thing, a little shocking as well. I heard you and Adam Kaplan talking about that. And I want to start with the Eagles. We'll get into the Phillies in just a second. But the Eagles, 53-man roster is set. You love to see it. It's that time of year. It's September's right around the corner. You have fall. You have playoff baseball. Football starting. Basketball's around the corner. Hockey as well. So a lot of fun stuff. But I want to start with some of the conversation I've been hearing on social media, Mike, regarding and on national television regarding the Philadelphia Eagles. You know, I feel like the Eagles are being a little bit disrespected. I guess because of how things ended last year. I understand that. But for people to put the Eagles finishing 3rd, not making the playoffs, not having Jalen Hurts in their conversation as one of the top quarterbacks in football, I just don't understand it. So I asked the question today, how many wins do you think the Eagles will win this year, or they will get. And I got to say, they're going to get 11 or 12. I'm just going down the list again. I'm looking at the 53-man roster that's set now. There could be some changes as we move forward in the next couple of days. But this is an 11 or 12-win team. The offense is just too good. We know this is an offensive league now, Mike. It's just mind-boggling to me that people are out there saying this stuff.
Listen, I think their schedule's a little bit more difficult than people are giving it credit. I mean, Green Bay is a team that went to the NFC Championship game last year. I think Atlanta is way better than people are giving them credit for. They loaded up with some pieces on defense here. That game is not a give me. I think Atlanta wins the South. And you might say, well, the South isn't great. Well, Tampa Bay wasn't great last year, and they beat you in the playoffs. New Orleans, okay, but that game's on the road. Tampa, I mean, they dominated you the last time you saw them. That game's on the road, and it's hot down there in September. So that's your first four, then you get the bye. I mean, the easiest game in there is at New Orleans. Anytime you're playing at New Orleans, that's not an easy game. Cleveland, that team's tough. The Giants, okay, not a great team. Cincinnati, that's a Super Bowl level team. Jacksonville's a playoff level team. Dallas, very good. Washington, I like Washington better than most. I think that's an average team. I think the Rams are a playoff level team. Baltimore's a Super Bowl level team. Carolina, all right. Pittsburgh is a wild card team. Washington, Dallas, New York. There's not a definitively bad team other than Carolina on that schedule. That said, I think they win 10, 11 games in there. But that's a pretty tough road ahead there, man.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's not a tough schedule. It's a tougher schedule, I think, than people think. But to just discredit the Eagles as a non-playoff team, the only way I could see that happening is if they get really hurt and there's a lot of injuries. The Eagles are a good football team, especially on paper, and they have really talented players. You have a new coaching staff on the offensive side as well as on the defensive side, and the coordinators, and Kellen Moore, Vic Fangio. But you brought in all these stars on offense. I mean, you have Saquon Barkley. You trade for Jahan Dotson as your third wide receiver. He's going to get some reps. I like the offensive line. I still think it's good. I don't think they have enough depth there at the moment. I mean, they didn't keep a ton. They cut a lot of guys. Hennessy's gone. Toth's gone. A lot of offensive linemen they did cut. But I think defensively, people are very pessimistic just because it's so unknown. But in this league, you don't have to have a great defense to go deep into the postseason. If your offense is outscoring teams, which the Eagles team is set up to do, I think they'll be okay. I don't know what's with all this pessimism as we're heading into the first week of the season here.
Well, listen, the defense, I agree to some extent. You got to have a good defense. You can't have a lousy defense. 2 years ago, 2 years ago, they went to the Super Bowl. They had the number 2 defense in football, and people didn't like the defense, and they couldn't get a stop in the Super Bowl. A handful, when they won the Super Bowl, they made no plays in that game until they needed to make a play. So they didn't have a great defensive day, but they made a big play. That said, I agree. I think they have a really good offense, but this is like the Phillies. Can they win the Super Bowl? Yes. Do I think they have the best team? Not quite. I don't think they have the best 53.
No, I'm with you. I don't think it's the best 53. I think it's because on the defensive side of the ball, there's a lot of unknowns with Jalen Carter or Jordan Davis, and you don't know how these guys are going to develop in the year 2, year 3. Nakobe Dean, what is he going to be? I think that's why you're seeing pessimism. But, I mean, to think the offense isn't going to be great. I mean, if this team stays healthy, there's no reason
that
for
I
this
agree with.
Offense not to be great.
That I agree with. I think the offense, I got them at 29.1 points a game. I think this team should score right around 30 points a game. I think they're tough to stop, but they do have a more difficult schedule than I think people give them credit for. I think the schedule is a little bit more difficult than like when you take a look at it at first glance. I think it is a challenging slate there.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Atlanta thing. Kirk Cousins is down there now. They have a new head coach. Listen, they have a lot of young weapons on that Atlanta team. That first home game of the year, that's going to be a tougher game. They're a better team, so I'm with you there. This is not an easy schedule for the Eagles. They got the Bengals, they got the Ravens at some point. The Cowboys are always going to be tough. The division games, I think the Commanders are going to take a step forward. But the Eagles are still really good, and it's because of their offense. If they stay healthy on the offensive side, they're going to be just fine. They're going to put up a lot of points. It's the defense where I would see where the concern may be. But I think I'm with you. 11 wins sounds about right to me. I think 11 wins, if you go down the schedule, I think that makes sense. Because remember, we can't just say the Eagles, I know they're playing good teams, but they're a good team too.
Yep, I agree. And look, 10-11 should be right in that mix.
Yep, I'm with you. All right, let's move along. We got to get to baseball. And, you mentioned the thing with the Phillies and the Eagles. I'm more with you on the Eagles than the Phillies. The Phillies, I'm locked in. You're going to have to owe me flats in a couple of months. That I can guarantee you. I'm guaranteeing it here on Knicks Nuggets today. But the Phillies, they found a way last night, Mike, and Harper needed that. He needed that walk-off. He needed that single in late in the game, and he comes through big time. Because remember, in his last 8 games, he had 10 strikeouts. He was 5 for 32, batting $156, and that was huge for Harper's confidence. Like, I think Zach Wheeler said after the game that he doesn't get too low on himself, and he's somebody who's a leader of this team. So for Harper to get that big hit last night, he was really rolling at the dish. That's what you need to see out of your leader. I think the Phillies, they're on their way. Houston's a very, very tough matchup. They've got 70 wins on the season. Now the Phillies are tied with the Dodgers right now, right with the Dodgers in the stand.
Big win last night, and you're right. I said this at the start of the show today. The fact that it was Harper that was the one that got it done. You've been waiting and waiting. We talked about the month of August has been terrible for him. He just has not got that, got the big hit, or hasn't had anything go his way really in this month. But for him to be the one that finally came through last night to help this team win, that was a big moment in this season possibly. And I thought, the blueprint, I call that a blueprint win. Again, this is the starting pitcher gets to the 6th, and then your 7th, 8th, and 9th, you go with Kerkering, Strahm, Hoffman, Estevez. They had those 4 last night. Now, of course, you had to go 10, but you want 3 of those 4 generally pitching in those 7th, 8th, and 9th innings to get the win. The bullpen, are they starting to come around? Bullpen, that was a playoff-like game, a playoff-like atmosphere. And look, they're the kind of games you're going to have to win. The question will be, how many 3-2 games can this team squeak out? Here's a big question for you, though, Nick Earnshaw. They won that game last night for a big reason, and it has to be talked about. Rojas made a play that Marsh ain't making. Marsh is the guy who's going to be in center field a lot more than Rojas is, including tonight. Rojas is sitting in the dugout. Marsh is out in center field, but I don't think Marsh makes that play last night.
I'm so glad you brought this up because I had it right here in my Nuggets little form I got right here on my notes, okay? What do you make of Marsh being in the lineup again tonight in center field? Rojas has been really good.
Well, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised because either, you got a right-handed pitcher. You got a right-handed pitcher. When the right-handed pitcher's going, you're gonna get Marsh against right-handed pitchers. That's the thing they're gonna have to now start to balance is against the right-handed pitchers. You're getting Marsh, but you're losing the defense. And I think that's a play last night that does not get made if you got Marsh out there.
I have to agree with you on that. We know how good Rojas is in center field. They're going to have to find a balance. Like, now does it seem like the Hayes move is just kind of getting in the way of stuff now? I mean, I know you don't want to have Marsh, hit against lefties. I get that. But wouldn't you want Rojas in the lineup and then you kind of platoon Hayes and Marsh instead? I don't know. It's just a thought because Rojas has been so good and that glove may have saved the game last night.
Definitely does. And by the way, if you look at the numbers on Rojas in the month of August, he's not hurting you at the plate right now. He's actually, here are the numbers on Rojas. And by the way, Marsh in center tonight, Austin Hayes is in left. You got Hayes batting in the 9-hole. But for Rojas in August, 311, 9 runs scored, 5 ribbies, 4 stolen bases. He's got, in the 2024 season, he's hitting .314 with runners in scoring position and .319 with 2 outs and runners in scoring position. I mean, he's handling himself, man.
No, I know. And that's why I'm a little frustrated that Marsh is playing center field because Hayes has been hurt. He hasn't really given you a ton. And, I would prefer them to platoon Marsh and Hayes in left and let Rojas get more of the run in center field because he helps you out defensively. That's not a concern at all. It's always been about the bat with him. And Austin Hayes, in the couple of games that he has played in this month, I mean, he's only batting .241. So he's not giving you much. And we talked about this a ton, Mike. Like, he's just a guy that's a platoon guy. He's a 9-hole hitter, 8-hole hitter. That really isn't going to put you over the top. I would rather them platoon Marsh and Hayes in left for the most part than platoon Rojas and Marsh in center, because Rojas can help you out defensively at this point, and he's hitting. If he's hitting, that's the whole problem. He wasn't hitting, and that's why people were so frustrated with Rojas, including myself. But he went down to the minors, he came right back up because of all the injuries, and he's kind of figured it out a little bit at the plate, and he gives you a great glove out in center field. So it's a little frustrating that they're not going that route with Marsh.
I agree. I've said this many times. I'll echo it again. The trade for Hayes, to me, didn't do anything to change the dynamics of this team. They added a 9-hole hitter. They already have a 9-hole hitter. Rojas is a right-handed bat that can hit ninth. Hayes is a right-handed bat that's hitting ninth. And you're losing a defensive player and not getting much of an upgrade, if any upgrade, with the bat. I mean, you might say Hayes is a better offensive player than Rojas is. I don't think it's significant enough. Hayes is hitting .240. Rojas is hitting .246. Hayes has very little power. He's got 1 homer since he's been here. Rojas has 3 homers. Obviously, he's played more. But Hayes' upgrade as an offensive player is not enough to take the defense of Rojas out for me.
Yeah, it's not significant enough for him to be starting every day in left field. It's just not. And, I think it would be better if they platooned him and Marsh. I think that is the move right now with bringing him in. We all know the move was Rooker. That was the move at the deadline that they should have made in Oakland. If they had to give up a little more, so be it. But they didn't do that. They chose to go this route, the platoon route, but they're treating Hayes like a starter, and he's not a starter. He is a platoon player that should be platooning with Brandon Marsh. Rojas, if the bat is there, should be in center field every single night at the moment, because there's not much of a give and take with the batting average there. It's just not that much of a difference having Austin Hayes in the lineup if you're going to keep Rojas out. It's just not. And Marsh, we know against lefties, switch those two out. And Marsh plays a good left field, and Rojas is a better center fielder. He's the best center fielder on the roster. So it's an interesting move. I think they should go that route instead of platooning Marsh and Rojas in center.
We agree. I totally agree.
Look at this. Do you believe this? After the past couple of Knicks Nuggets, we're agreeing on things. All right, Mike, I got to move along. There was a fan in the stands last night. They kept showing on television. He was actually videoing the game himself, and he was posting it on his Instagram story, and it was all over. Did you see Joel Embiid, Nugget number 3, in the crowd last night, Mike? Now, how frustrated would you be if Joel Embiid sat right in front of you? Because it's a tall man, and I don't know if I would want to sit right behind Joel Embiid, but how about him showing up to the Phillies game last night?
You know what's the weird part about it? Now, I don't know this for certain. He's there by himself. Is he there with anybody else, or is Joel Embiid just stroll to a game, walk up to the window and just buy, hey, I'll take a single seat behind home plate? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it's the weirdest thing. Hey, I heard he got a huge ovation when he got put on the screen, which I'm glad to hear. The fact that, hey, the fans acknowledged that he was there. They gave him a big cheer. And that, hey, who knew that Joel was a big baseball fan?
Yeah, he shows up and he sits right behind the home plate, and he's filming the game like he's just a random guy. Like, I can't go on YouTube and catch the highlights. I'm gonna film it myself, and that went viral. The video he took went absolutely viral because he filmed Harper hitting the walk-off single and Schwarber coming around sliding to score. It was a pretty good camera work by Joel Embiid there.
Well, it's always great to see when a great player can admire another great player, right? And you have that last night where there's Joel, an MVP acknowledging and just in awe of another MVP. Those moments are pretty cool.
Yeah, and you go back to the point, is he just strolling up by himself? I don't know what the details were, but it seems like he kind of just did that because I don't know if he was there for the full game or he didn't come down to his seat till later in the game.
Yeah, that's weird because they didn't show him until late in the game. And then once they got him, it was like, hey, guess who's here? It's like, I mean, he's been here. He probably was here the whole time. But,
Yeah, you can't miss him. I mean, maybe he was in the Hall of Fame club because he was behind home plate. He was probably hanging out there. I don't know. But he strikes me as the person, let me just go show up at the game. He's not a nosebleed guy like me, but he'll go down he'll go down to the Hall of Fame club and sit there. But he strikes me as a guy, he'll just walk up probably to the ticket booth, get a ticket, and just go right in. That just seems like a Joel Embiid thing to do.
Yep. And listen, last night, by the way, I don't know if you saw this, it was the first time that the Phillies had under 40,000 in the building last night.
Really?
39 last night. First time under 40 in the building.
That's interesting. I did not hear that all year, huh?
Yep.
Because they've sold out a ton this year for the most part.
Yeah, no, listen, they have been big time. The crowds have been big. They have been, the fans have been great. But last night, 39,000 still pretty
right
big
there.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's right there. All right. Final nugget of the day. It's sticking kind of with the 76ers. Now, Mike, I don't know if you heard that the findings for the impact studies on the 76ers arena came out last night. They were 400 pages in how they were going to affect the community, the analysis, the economic impact to the arena. There's still a lot of opposition to this. The economic impact they said would be massive. The traffic and transportation, that's going to still be a struggle. They said they even thought of it. I've even read some articles that they float out the idea they would add SEPTA and PACO passes to tickets to try and get people in. I don't know if it was an overall positive thing for the 76ers. Are you on board with the Center City type of thing, the deal? I don't know. I just don't see a stadium in Center City.
I don't love the idea because I'm on the Jersey side.
True.
For the Jersey side, that's a terrible experience for us. Try to drive in to the city, to have to try to park. I mean, we're taking the straight shot, hitting the Walt Whitman, and getting right into South Philly to the stadium area. So for someone who lives on the Jersey side, going into Center City is a miserable thought. I mean, I don't want to have to do that ever. No. I mean, but I do like the idea if I'm living on the Philly side, if I live there, having the stadium in the downtown, like you go to certain cities and the arena's right in downtown and it's a vibrant place and it kind of re-energizes that area. But as a Jersey fan, like someone who lives on the Jersey side, I don't want to make that drive.
Yeah, the drive would not be great. Someone like my age going on the train, that's not bad. You're going right in the city, boom, you get right off. It's kind of like Madison Square Garden. You get off right at Penn Station, you're at the Garden in New York. That's a pretty easy kind of commute. But I don't know. I think they should just keep everything down in the complex. It's very unique to Philadelphia. There's not a ton of cities that have that complex like that. I just keep it where it is.
And
around there.
There's two things. Like, number one, there's plenty of room in that stadium area to build your own stadium. You want to build a stadium, find a vacant spot of land right there and just keep building that area up. Have the Flyers there, have the Sixers have their own building there. What's to say that you can't put your own building, next door to where the Eagles are or somewhere down in that area. You could do it on the waterfront down there. You've got the Navy Yard back there. That would be a cool spot. So I don't know why they feel like they have to go into Center City to do that. You also, people laugh at this all the time. Like, I always ask this question. We always have to drive from here to Philly. If they put the arena down closer to this area, like a lot of teams are doing, it's not far-fetched. Like, teams are now building their arenas 45 minutes outside of these cities, and they're taking so would people from Philly make the drive to I say Mays Landing, where the mall is, where the racetrack is? If they put the stadium where the racetrack is, would people make that drive? Of course they would. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, there was that report that came out a couple of weeks ago that New Jersey's trying to get them to come over.
Yeah, but they want them to go to Camden, which is basically right where the practice facility. And then there was a report that Delaware made their pitch and then want to put it in Wilmington on the waterfront there. So I say, look, if somebody in Atlantic County, hey, we've got the Atlantic City racetrack that's got nothing going on there. Why not plop it in an arena right there? The expressway is right there, although the traffic in that spot would be brutal.
Yeah, for you and I, it would be nice. If it was right there, right in South Jersey, it'd be nice. We'd have to go over the bridge, pay the toll. It'd be easy for us, but I don't see it happen. I don't know what's going to happen with this whole arena thing. It's
listen,
be
I don't have any qualms with the Sixers wanting their own arena, but just put it in the stadium district. Just keep it in South Philly and just keep making – look, that area has so much more potential. You could do so much more there than what you have, and by putting another stadium and be like these baseball – like Atlanta Braves, they built their stadium, and then they built all the restaurants and the housing and the hotels. They own it all. They make all the. That's why they're 45 minutes outside of Atlanta, though, because they needed the room to do it. But Philly has the room to do it down there in that stadium area.
Yep, it very well could happen. We'll see how it all shakes out. But, Mike, 4 nuggets for you, 4-pack on Tuesday.
All right, good stuff, Nick. And, of course, Nick's back tomorrow with another edition of Nick's Nuggets here on the Sports Bash. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, and streaming live video on the X platform. At Mike Gill Show, use the hashtag SBLive. College football is back on 97.3 ESPN. It starts Thursday night. North Carolina, Minnesota. I love watching and listening, knowing that every Thursday the football's back. Your college on Thursday. The NFL starts next Thursday, and you can hear that game on 97.3 ESPN. College football Saturday. We've got a doubleheader. Penn State, West Virginia at noon, followed by Miami and Florida at 3:30. And then we've got the Phillies and the Braves on Saturday night and on Sunday Night Baseball, and that's all right here on 97.3 ESPN. When we come back, speaking of the Phils, the lineup is out, and they've got Game 2, Aaron Nola on the mound against Justin Verlander. That's tonight.
This is the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Now live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Mike Gill.
5 o'clock, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. This hour of the show, it's brought to you by Key Acura of Atlantic City. You know, you have from now to the end of the month, get an estimate from another Acura dealer and bring it into Key Acura of Atlantic City, and Rocco will beat that price by $1,000 on your new Acura. Key Acura, Tilton Road, Egg Harbor Township, your small but friendly dealer. The 5 o'clock hour of the Sports Bash. Phillies tonight got Aaron Nola against Justin Verlander. As the series continues at Citizens Bank Park, Phils win 3-2 last night, and it was a big hit by one Bryce Harper. Frank Close covers the Phillies for 97.3 ESPN.com. His Phillies mailbag appears every Tuesday on 97.3 ESPN.com. But, Frank, let's start there. How big of a moment was that for Bryce Harper, who has seemingly not had a big hit the entire second half of the year?
Yeah, I think Bryce Harper needed that. You know, as I said a few times on this show, he seemed to has let it got to his head. You know, he was changing his bat. He was taking batting gloves off. You know, it seemed to weigh on him a little bit mentally. You know, so a long season, you get banged up, and then you go into a little slump, and then sometimes you just can't seem to snap out of it. So yesterday was a really important win, I think, for them. They're facing a very good team, and as you said, Bryce Harper finally comes through with one of the big hits and gets that Phillies in the win column, because, you really hate to lose a game like that.
They've won 8 out of the last 12. I mean, is this team playing better, or is there still a little clunkiness or something just not flowing right about this team?
I think it's coming back together. Still a few spots on the roster that certainly we'll talk about in a moment, such as the fifth starter in the rotation. And, the bullpen right now is in a little bit of flux with Jose Alvarado out for a little bit. So, but it seems like, they're getting a lot of things together. You're seeing some of the players that went ice cold starting to have big hits again. And I think they have to remember they're a good team. It was almost like the Phillies built up such a lead so early, it almost became boring. They didn't have the same drive for a while, and then so some of them slipped a little bit, and then it just seemed to just take off from there. So it's a good time of the year to start getting it back together again, because hey, in a few days it's September, and they need to play well down the stretch and into the playoffs, more importantly.
Frank, I want to get your take on this as well. Marsh is in the lineup tonight. I mean, obviously, look, no one's in here, pounding the table for Rojas as an offensive player, but he makes that play in center. He's actually got a better batting average than both Marsh and Hayes, believe it or not. I don't know. The Hayes thing almost feels like an unnecessary move here. You could play Marsh in left and Rojas in center. When you look at it, what should they do with that triangle of guys?
Well, I would do what you've seen them do of late, maybe bring him in for defense late in the game. Johan Rojas, he is hitting 300, I believe, since the All-Star break, like right on the nose. But, for him, it's been a matter of consistency. They still haven't really figured out how to use his speed in a way that they should. So, I think you're going to see him play some games late. For defense, I think you'll see a lot of Rojas coming into center and Marsh sliding over to left if you're looking to get the last few outs and preserve a lead. But they traded for Austin Hayes, and they gave a lot, but Sir Anthony Dominguez is having a nice time down in Baltimore last I checked, and so trading a reliever for who can pitch in some late innings for what was supposed to be a starting outfielder. I mean, that's significant. So, I mean, I think Hayes will. When they traded for Hayes, he always batted better, as a platoon type player. But I coming off that injury, I can see him being a little tentative still. So I think you need to play him and see what happens. But you know what? Especially as you get towards the end of the year, you're trying to get into the playoffs, and when you get to the playoffs, always put your best lineup out there, no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is you got Hayes. I know you traded for him, and I've said over and over is you traded for a 9-hole hitter. You already had a 9-hole hitter. You didn't need another one. Hayes is 240. I know he's only played 13 games, 255 on base. You got Marsh, 245 with a 321 on base. You got Rojas at 246. I mean, so him and Marsh are kind of, I know Marsh has more power, but Rojas has more speed. And I look at the play last night. Marsh ain't making that play in center field last night. So how much the Phillies have to think about the defensive component if you got three guys all kind of giving you about the same offensively? Marsh has the most power, but it's not significant power. The speed of Rojas more dangerous than what Hayes brings you. I almost wonder if Hayes is the third offensive option of those three.
I personally think if Rojas played more right now, he would be a little bit more exposed. I actually kind of like him playing him selectively. I think they'll get more out of him if they put him in the right spots. But yeah, for defense, I think that they need to make sure that on the bench, and it's a lot different than the old school National League style baseball where the pitcher hit, right? It seems like a Rojas would have many more opportunities, either pinch hitting or at least running the bases for somebody. But it's a little bit different now, but I think they need to be selective with how they use him, and I don't want to overexpose him at this point. If I'm Rob Thompson, I think you should try to pick your spots best you can, and then once you see the opportunity, the Phillies have a lead. If they're up a few runs heading into the 8th or 9th, that's when I would make sure he goes into the game.
All right, let's get into some of the mailbag questions. Greg wants to know, why don't the Phillies just DFA Taijuan Walker? Complete busteroni as a free agent. Every time he pitches, the team loses. Why do they keep trotting him out there every 4 days, every 5th day? Now he's getting trotted out tomorrow instead of his normal day. They're moving him up against the he'll pitch against the Astros instead of the Braves. That was something Rob Thompson said last night. He's earned it. Has he?
Well, he might have earned it with his entire body of career work, I suppose. But, think back 40 years, Mike Gill. There was a time when Coca-Cola spent a ton of money developing Coke 2, and then they had $30 million worth of inventory when they finally said, "All right, that's enough. We're over this Coke 2 business, and we're going to bring back Coca-Cola Classic and make everybody happy."
Was it Coke 2 or was it New Coke? Was it Coke 2 or was it New Coke?
Well, they called it New Coke, and then it became called Coke 2. Yeah. So, but anyway, my point is, in the business world, they call it a sunk cost. Sometimes you put out the money, and it's clear it's not working anymore, and then you have to move on from it. But I think right now, Phillies are in a tough spot with him in that his velocity is down, and really they spent the season wondering how he could get his splitter back. I mean, that was the pitch that had him playing very well. Remember the beginning of last season, it feels like forever ago, when the Phillies were struggling out of the gate from Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola. He was what carried the Phillies, and but he's lost something there. And if he doesn't have that velocity, you basically have to learn how to pitch all over again. So he had the time away. They wanted his finger to heal, make sure he got that split back. And it's been tough. He has not shown much in his 3 starts since he returned, and all in all, they've lost his last 8 starts, which is a lot, dating back to before his injured list stint. So, if I'm the Phillies, what I think I see them doing on Wednesday, I think they're planning almost like for it to be a bullpen game. I think he's got a short hook as a starter, and I wouldn't be shocked if they moved him to the bullpen before that they would actually just get rid of him altogether. I mean, they did pay a lot of money to bring him into town. 4 years, $18 million per. They owe him $36 million after this season, including the remainder of the $18 million for this year. I think for someone like him, before they would just cut ties altogether, I think a bullpen stint might be in order to see if he can help them there. Sometimes when you go to the bullpen and you only have to pitch an inning, you get some of that velocity back. Maybe that's a gateway to do it. And then you can bring him back into spring training and then see if he's got anything in the spring. I mean, it's a big decision to cut that much money. And, given his injury, given what he's battled this year, if you gave up on him now and he went to spring training for someone else and figured it out, then you might feel a little bad. But I think the time could be coming soon. I don't think it's during this season. I think a bullpen stint right now could happen. But, it's a really tough situation to be in. I think for a while they were content letting him be the 5th starter, knowing that they had 4 really good other starters. And certainly then you had a couple injuries. When Ranger Suarez goes down, then he's extra exposed. And, Tyler Phillips pitched very admirably as soon as he came up, and then he was a little overexposed. And so, it really does have an effect going forward. So I think that you'll see them do what they did today. Now, I mean, a couple things could be at play while he's starting on Wednesday and sort of jumped up, but he's not the one facing the Braves. So, I think the Phillies are trying to line up these matchups down the stretch. And if you can avoid using him too much in one way or the other, I mean, that might be their way around it. But, me personally, I would still want to see if he's got anything left at spring training. And if he doesn't, then maybe that's the time you move on.
All right, Frank Close, 97.3 ESPN.com, answering your Phillies questions. At 973ESPN.com is where the Phillies mailbag is. By the way, Bryson Stott, 2 for 4 last night. Neither ball got out of the infield, but 14 for 38, 368 over his last 11 games. The question I would have for you is, last year he hit in the 5 hole in the playoffs. He was kind of in that 5 spot. Where do the Phillies want him ultimately? Do they like this lineup, the one that we've been seeing the last couple of nights with Castellanos 5, Stott 6, Realmuto 7? Is this the lineup that you think is the playoff lineup?
I think they would very much prefer to have a lefty batting 5th, and the reason why is your 2 big lefties in the lineup are Schwarber, who leads off, and then you have Harper batting 3rd. So then when you get beyond that, you have Bohm, and then it's kind of a hole there, right? If neither Marsh nor Stott are giving you a whole lot, then you have to go righty. I think if they had their druthers, they would have Stott there ahead of Castellanos to break it up back and forth. I mean, we're in the era where if a relief pitcher comes in, they have to face 3 batters. So, bringing in a lefty reliever to get a couple guys in a row out, I think they would prefer to, make sure everybody's broken up, because you got 3. They have to face 3 batters no matter what. So, it would be really huge for this team if Stott sort of has figured it out and is back to his old ways. As we've been saying, he's somebody that just makes a lot of contact, and you kind of thought that he wouldn't be away from that for long. And so, you see when you're getting your swing back, you start to make contact. Yeah, maybe there's a couple infield hits here and there, but it's just a sign that his swing is getting back on track. He's making contact. And, if he has a really good September, I think they'd love to have him in that 5th spot.
All right, let's get to another question in the mailbag. Buddy Kennedy, who, by the way, 315, 400 on base at AAA. He's been really good for them. Does he have a role when Weston Wilson comes back? Obviously, a lot of people asking about Walker is he going to stick around? But I don't know. Is there a spot for Buddy Kennedy moving forward?
Yeah, right now I don't see that really working on the long term. I mean, he's really good to jump in for Weston Wilson's spot for the short term. But it was interesting the way that the Phillies announced the transactions. They sort of paired the Max Lazar transaction with the Wilson one. I've been studying the MLB rule book. I'm not sure if it's that clear, but when you send somebody down to the minor leagues, they can't come back for 15 days. It says unless there is an injury. Now, Jose Alvarado on the restricted list, I haven't been able to figure out if that counts. So I think what the Phillies did is they tied it to the paternity leave so that he could come right back. And then it buys them some time with Max Lazar. And then if they need to use a lot of pitchers on Wednesday, at least they have a fresh arm in Max Lazar. Then they can bring up somebody the next time. But I think what you're finding now is the Phillies are in a little bit of a crunch here for all the players that they optioned to the minors. Both Tylers. And then certainly they just optioned Max Lazar. You can't bring them up right away. So I think they're kind of balancing the roster. You're going to need to see an influx of arms. And I think especially if Taijuan Walker doesn't go deep on Wednesday, you might have to empty the bullpen and then bring some more arms up. So I think with Wilson coming back, there's no clear other position player spot to keep Kennedy around. We'll see what happens. Honestly, though, when you get to September, I think one of the things that is kind of a wild card now is Rafael Marchand has been battling an injury. He took a week off, came back a couple days, and in the second game, he already left the game early. So he's a little banged up. So if they can't carry a third catcher in Rafael Marchand, I suppose there's a shot. But I think that at least as they are right now, before the calendar turns, I don't see room for him. But who knows? I mean, we're seeing people leaving the roster for various reasons, and so he might get a shot. But the Phillies claimed him for a reason. He's on the 40-man roster, and if you're on the 40-man roster, it's easy for you to come back and forth.
All right, Frank. What do we know about the Jose Alvarado stuff? The restricted list. What does that mean? I know Thompson said he does expect him back, but Alvarado put out a tweet today that wasn't very clear about stuff. But what do we make of this whole Alvarado situation?
The most we know about it really is what Alvarado shared, and basically he shared a prayer. He was just praying for his family. He comes from Venezuela. We saw the trouble he had getting his family into the country to even watch him play, and so I think that again, it's kind of tough to really speculate what exactly went wrong. You worry. A lot of athletes in Venezuela have had problems. Even former Phillies catcher Wilson Ramos, if you remember him, he was actually kidnapped himself once. And so it's a really tense climate in Venezuela right now. I'm certainly hoping for the best. I hope his family's okay. But it's one of those things where you don't necessarily want to prod, into somebody's life like that. But today we did get the update that they do expect him back at some point this season. So hopefully it's just a small setback for him. But it certainly seems like whatever it is, the Phillies are being very supportive and letting him go do what he needs to do for his family.
Yeah, and obviously, he was struggling, but he's a big key. I mean, they got to get him back, and they got to get him back to the guy that's been a big part. But their bullpen the last couple nights, the Kerkering, Strahm, Hoffman, Estevez, they seem to have found their form, at least for now.
And those are 4 good arms that you have in the bullpen. So, I mean, you hate to lose Alvarado. I mean, who knows? Maybe his recent struggles were related to something that's going on in his life. I mean, we don't know. I'm sure Alvarado will return and tell his story. But, the Phillies bullpen, though, they have a couple spots there that, are I won't say suspect, but they're not the top shelf. But they even got some good contributions out of the likes of Jose Ruiz lately. I know we had one little stretch where he struggled a little bit, but overall he's been pretty decent. So, but when you have Estevez, when you have Hoffman, you have Kerkering, you have Strahm, those are 4 really good relievers. And Tanner Banks, they threw him right into the fire. That's another lefty that they can count on besides Strahm. So it seems like they have enough depth to deal with Alvarado being out a little bit. And overall, it's encouraging. But I think there's a couple spots on that roster you're going to see a lot of turning over in upcoming weeks, just because You know, you have, again, with a Walker start that goes short and all of a sudden you have to use up the bullpen, you might need to turn them over to some other arms so you have fresh arms behind them. But so, I mean, who knows? You could see Junior Marte back again soon. There's a couple other arms that are on the 40-man roster. The Phillies just added somebody named Kyle Tucker. You might have remembered him with the Marlins. I think he pitched for another team as well. And Freddie Tarnok, who's pitched for a couple major league teams as well. You know, they're all at AAA, and they could help the Phillies potentially coming up.
All right, last one in the mailbag this week. Let's go to Dave. Would you take a shot on Drew Smiley? Little reunion. Phillies fans, Philadelphia fans love a reunion.
Well, here's the thing about Smiley. He's been put on waivers, and the Cubs, it appears, are simply trying to get somebody to claim him and his salary. And if you look at his contract, he's probably got a little bit over $1.5 million due for the rest of this season. And then there's a $2.5 million buyout for next season. So if you're grabbing Drew Smiley, you're paying him $4 million for now till the playoffs. And that's quite the investment. I'm not sure that somebody is going to claim him. The Cubs might just be trying to see if somebody will take on all that money, because apparently the Cubs are right up against the luxury tax and they want to perhaps avoid it. So they're trying to get rid of money wherever they possibly can. So, but it's very, very possible that nobody claims Smiley and he just stays on the Cubs roster. So I'm not sure that they would necessarily release him, but you know, they would have to actually outright release him to have that happen. So you're seeing this now a lot without that August trade ability. You could trade for somebody using the waiver system. Now we're seeing a lot of teams put players on waivers, hoping that somebody will just claim them and take their money off their books. So could be a way to add a player, but you know, the Phillies have spent a lot of money this year. So I'm not sure if they would spend an extra $4 million plus all the penalties that would come with that just to have Drew Smiley for a few weeks.
All right, Frank Close, 97.3 ESPN.com, and we'll see what happens. You know, yesterday we were talking to Bob Wankel, and he talked about Taijuan Walker. I guess he would be one guy moving forward here. We'll see what his future is with the team. But they did announce that he will start on Wednesday, tomorrow, instead of Thursday. They're going to move Sanchez back a day so that Walker will pitch tomorrow, and then Sanchez. If Walker doesn't pitch well tomorrow, would you think that could be his last start here?
Start? Yes. I don't know that they would get rid of him, but I think he's on thin ice in terms of being in the rotation every fifth day. I mean, one of the problems is they don't necessarily have an obvious person to start behind him, but you know, the Phillies did pick up somebody in the trade with the Baltimore Orioles in exchange for Gregory Soto, named Seth Johnson, and he's fared pretty well in the minors this year. Some have wondered if he might come up and take a start. I mean, I suppose it's possible, but the calendar is almost September. You might only need 5 more starts out of that spot in the rotation as we get to the playoffs.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that tomorrow, obviously, as Walker gets moved up and Sanchez is bumped back. But tonight it's Nola and Verlander, and of course the Phillies and the Astros, game 2 of a 3-game set at Citizens Bank Park. Frank Close, 97.3 ESPN.com. Thanks, Frank.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, Frank, of course, has the Phillies covered, and his mailbag appears every Tuesday on our website, 97.3 ESPN.com. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash, and we have plenty more to go, including today's Big Three. And, of course, we've got, this Friday, we are going to be live on the road, and we'll be down in Rio Grande at Jester's Dive Bar. Stop out there. We got so much going on. This Friday for Happy Hour Friday at Jester's, we're going to be doing tickets to the Killers. Killers, big time, by the way. Great tickets. Tickets to see the Killers. 99 Bottles entries, and we do know where this year's 99 Bottles party is. I'll give you more details on that tomorrow. But if you want to get in this year's 99 Bottles and you don't want to have to call, you don't want to have to wait, you don't want to have to be one of the 99 callers, stop out to Jester's Dive Bar, Rio Grande, this Friday between 2 and 6. First 10 people, you're getting in to this year's 99 Bottles party. And I promise you, you are going to like this year's 99 Bottles spot. Okay? I promise you. Never been there before. How's that? I gave you a little insight there, Josh. We've never been there before. Okay? That's the insight. That's this Friday, Happy Hour Friday. 15 years of the Sports Bash with $3 Bud Light drafts, $3 neutral vodka seltzers. And that's all on a Happy Hour Friday. This hour brought to you by Kia Acura of Atlantic City. From now to the end of the month, get a written estimate from another Acura dealer. Bring it to Kia Acura, to my guy Rocco. Show him the estimate. He'll beat that price by $1,000. If you want an Acura, right now's the time to get it. And the new 2025s are in. What else is in? The big three is in. Coming next.
You're listening with Mike Gill.
When I'm driving, I got a guy on the radio who talks to me. I can't see him, but he talks to me.
On 97.3 ESPN.
5:30 Sports Bash. This hour brought to you by Kia Acura of Atlantic City. Stop by with a written estimate, and my guy Rocco will beat it on any Acura by $1,000. Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. What do we got tonight? Phils? Anything else?
Phillies are on tonight. Yeah.
Anything else?
Baseball.
College football Thursday?
Yeah, Thursday is when it really gets hot and heavy for the football. I'm excited.
Mhm.
But got to be patient. Got to let it get here.
North Carolina, Minnesota Thursday night.
Two very different coaches.
Yeah, I like the Minnesota guy.
You like PJ?
Yep. I do. I like his. He goes quarter zip with the tie.
Is that what
underneath.
it is?
Yeah, he goes quarter zip with the tie underneath.
Guy's got a lot of energy.
Yeah, I like him.
He's got a lot of energy. I wonder how much caffeine he drinks every day. Think it's as much as I drink?
I don't know. I haven't seen him in action. But
if you were to just guess, seeing how much energy he has, you think he's a big caffeine guy?
Sure.
You're no fun with this conversation. All right, let's get to the big three.
I don't know what. Yeah, he drinks a lot of soda. I don't know. He's in good shape, that guy.
Well, I mean, I'm not exactly fat myself, but I drink a lot of caffeine. So, Mike, today's big three. I got 3 different audio bites from Michael Lombardi, former NFL executive, from the GM Shuffle podcast, and they have to do with the Eagles. And he went into this little, for lack of a better term, able to listen to his podcast or his shows. Lombardi likes to go on these diatribes, right? If you ever hear him on McAfee, he'll go on for like a good 4 or 5 minutes, and McAfee would just like kick his legs back and let him go. But he doesn't understand, Mike, why Washington traded Jahan Dotson to the Eagles.
Yeah, him and everybody else.
To me, this deal made no sense to me at all. You've got this kid Dotson now. He's got 11 touchdowns. He's had some production. He's got a 49% production rate in terms of thrown balls to catches, which isn't good for an outside receiver, let's face it. But he's been good. You know, so Howie trades a pick somewhere between 90 and 96, right? And he gets back a pick. So basically, this is like for a 4th-round pick. And if you're Adam Peters, I know you didn't draft the kid, but you can't think that way any longer in the NFL. I mean, you have to take what you have and make it into something good. Just because somebody else drafted them, you can't just discard them.
Look, I think everybody has commented on this trade that the Eagles have won the deal or they like the deal. We don't know who wins the deal until the deal is consummated, when they draft that guy or whatever they do with that pick. But you got to like getting a 1st-round pick wide receiver who now doesn't have to be the number 1 or number 2 guy, and he's got not only a number 1 and number 2 guy, he's got maybe the top 3 number 1 and probably the top number 2 guy in the league. So I mean, no one's breaking news here by saying they like the deal for Philadelphia. I do question why Washington is making this deal. What are they thinking that they're getting one over here? Maybe they know something we don't. But on the surface, a 3rd-round pick for a guy who was a 1st-round player who wasn't awful. It wasn't like he was insignificant. He was a decent player. Not what you wanted from a 1st-round pick. But why they just gave up on him, it's a head-scratcher.
I thought the part he mentioned about Adam Peters saying, listen, just because you didn't draft the guy doesn't mean you have to get rid of the guy. It's, the idea that, a lot of times coaches and general managers, when they come in, if someone wasn't their guy, quote unquote, right?
See that all the time.
But I think Lombardi brings up a good point. Who cares if he's your guy if he's a good player?
Yeah, I mean, that is sports now. It's like, well, anytime, like we talked about this a little earlier today with Jack Stoll's released, okay? Donald Parham's released. One guy played for Kellen Moore. The other guy played for the Eagles. So do the Eagles say, hey, this guy, we know him, we've had ties to him? Or do you say, hey, Kellen Moore knows this guy better? Which guy makes more sense? So many times teams go with guys that know the system or know their, or who the GM drafted. I know the Eagles didn't want to let Jack Stoll go, and he made the decision to leave here. So, yeah, I mean, if a guy can play, he can play regardless of who drafted him. That to me, is one of the head scratchers of sports.
Lombardi goes on to say that he expects Dotson to have a good year with Philly, but for a bit of a tongue-in-cheek reason. Mike, here's Michael Lombardi from the GM Shuffle podcast.
He's going to be the fifth option in Philly. Never see double coverage. He's going to have the worst corner on him all the time. He'll catch 50 balls for Philly. They'll think he's going to go to the Hall of Fame, all the Eagle fans will. He won't be that good, but he'll make a lot of plays because the matchups are going to favor him.
All the time. He's right. He is so down the list of guys that you have to pay attention to. You got a guy who was a first-round pick for a reason. He was a good route runner. Now, in college, he caught the ball. He's had the drops in Washington. Can he get over that? Can he get past that and then win in a deal in a matchup that he should generally win? Most times, he's going to have a favorable matchup. I liken it to the Nelson Aguilar move. If he can be somewhere on that Aguilar in 2017, that's what I'm looking at here.
And frankly, he's lower down the list of targets than Aguilar was in 2017. In 2017, Aguilar was the legitimate number 3 option.
Yeah, I mean, because Torrey Smith was an outside guy, but he was more of a deep threat guy.
Yeah.
He was like a one-trick pony kind of hey, just go run a fly pattern, but stretch the field. And because he stretched the field and was a veteran and had the ability to do it, that opened up the middle of the field so much for Aguilar. And then Aguilar had good speed, and he was able to win and catch the ball. He always had problems on the outside catching the ball. He had always had tracking issues on balls down the field. So I think this is something that Dotson should be able to thrive.
Final thing from Lombardi. So he talked about his favorite NFL offensive lines. And even though, Mike, he says the Eagles are his number 2 line in the NFL, he does use a word that we're probably not used to hearing describe the Eagles' offensive line over the last several years. Here's Michael Lombardi.
Detroit's by far the best line. It's not close. I think Philly's good, although Philly's a little bit overrated, but they're still a good line. I mean, I know everybody says Lane Johnson hasn't given up a sack since Moses wore shorts, but if you watch the tape, it's pretty clear that's not the case.
So can you be overrated and still be the second best offensive line in the NFL?
Yeah, because offensive line play in this league is so bad that the Eagles are probably. I do agree. I think Detroit's really good with Sewell and Ragnow and Glasnow and Decker, Zeitler. That line is really good. I think, yeah, you can be the next best and still be overrated because offensive line play stinks in this league. The Eagles line, look, Lane Johnson's really good. Whether he's given up 1 sack, no sacks, 4 sacks, he's really good. We know their record when he plays. Mailata's turned into a gem of a find. Landon Dickerson has been outstanding. You got 2 question marks that we'll find out more about, but, I think Becton at right guard is a real wild card because he's never played there before.
Correct.
And Cam Jurgens at the center spot taking over for Jason Kelsey. So, yeah, I think he's not off base by saying they might be a little overrated, but you're up against bad offensive lines. Not many teams in this league have 5 viable players. Most teams have 1 guy, maybe 2, and then the rest is just a mismatch of guys who just aren't very good. The Eagles don't have that problem. They have at least 3 very solid players, and the other 2, like Becton he was a first-round pick who played really well with the Jets. He just kept getting hurt.
Right, and so you're hoping that the Eagles putting him at guard maybe takes away from some of that because a lot of his injuries were done when he was having to go side to side. Maybe if he can just sit there, plant his feet, and just shove someone backwards, maybe it's a little better for him.
He's just such a big guy. We'll see. I mean, you don't see 6'8" guys that size playing guard, but look, He's 6'8", but athletic. He's got a lot of athleticism. He's strong. He's a big guy that can go right behind him. That's a big side of the line there with Lane Johnson and Mekhi Becton. And by the way,
Dickerson's 6'6".
Dickerson's a huge man. I was going to say, by the way, Dickerson's a huge man that plays left guard. So your interior of that line is mammoth.
That might be the real saving grace for Jurgens. He may not be the best center in the league, Mike, but the key might be, look, I got these two bodyguards next to me. Good luck with those boys.
Well, the question will be, too, how much that will affect Jalen Hurts, having a 6'8" guy and a 6'6" guy that he's got to try to throw over. I mean, that just he's not the tallest guy back there. Remember that.
True, but we've seen other quarterbacks who are not the tallest guys in the world succeed anyway. So if Hurts can embrace that a little bit, right? If he can be the guy who says, hey, I'm not saying
saying that his size doesn't mean he can't. I'm just saying now you have a guy 6'8" that you got to try to see over top of.
Right, but what I'm saying is you have guys like, for example, Drew Brees over the years. Aaron
Rodgers. Did he have a 6'8" guard?
Well, he didn't have a 6'8" guard, but he was 5'11".
That's what I'm referencing to. I'm not talking about the size of the quarterback being an issue for him. I'm talking about the size of the lineman in front of him being the problem of having to try to see up over a 6'8" guy who's right in front of you most times. It's not about his height that's the problem.
Well, the reason why I'm bringing up his height is because if Drew Brees was 5'10", 5'11", and he
but you could have a guy 6'3". You could have a 6'3" quarterback. The guy's 6'8" in your face. You're still going to have him right in front of you. That's why these guys play tackle. They're on the outside.
Sure.
They're not right in front of you when you're trying to step up into the pocket as much.
But still, like a guy like Drew Brees and others, they found ways to see around the offensive line, and they got used to it. So, again, I'm not saying that Hurts is going to be Drew Brees. I mean, we can only hope for 5,000 passing yard seasons in Philadelphia. We never had that. But still, if Jalen can get used to it, then it could be a very successful season.
Sure. I mean, obviously, you're hoping Becton steps into that job and he can handle it. But it is going to be interesting to see a guy that size play a position he's never played before. That's why I think what Lombardi said is not off base.
It's just we're not used to hearing that word overrated with the Eagles O-line. For years it was considered the best line in football.
I do think their offensive line was underwhelming last year. Like, you're looking at a team and say you got all these weapons and you have the best offensive line in football. Well, maybe you didn't have the best offensive line in football last year.
Right. Well, just for example, Jason Kelce, almost every single game had a penalty in the month of December. So it was like near the end of his career, Kelce wasn't the same anymore. And I'm not dissing him at all. I'm just saying it's the reality. There are many games that we all watched it. Kelce would have a false starter. Kelce would have, one of those penalties, and you see him put his hands on his hips and look up at the sky like, oh, they got me. And, you're kind of sitting there watching the game thinking, come on, Jason, you know better. So, yeah, maybe last year we overlooked the fact that part of the reason why the offense struggled might have been because the guy snapping the ball wasn't at his best.
The whole line in general, I think, just was not as good. Now, Dickerson was pretty solid for the most part, but your right guard, people forget. You had a kind of a revolving door. Jurgens got hurt. Somebody else was playing right guard. They had, I think, 3 or 4 different right guards at times last year. So
Jack Driscoll,
all those things
Brett
came into
Toth,
play.
Sua Opeta. Remember, he got reps over there.
Too many guys.
And so now you're hoping that another guy coming in at right guard can be the answer. And realistically, half the reason why Becton is getting this opportunity is because Tyler Steen couldn't stay healthy in training camp.
Yeah, and it would have been interesting to see what would have happened had he not got hurt. Would Becton got the snaps to get enough snaps to make them feel comfortable enough with him?
If you were doing a scale of 1 to 5, how comfortable is Mike Gill with the Eagles' offensive line heading into this season?
I mean, a 5. How comfortable I am with the Eagles.
5, really?
Well, I mean, I'm not the Giants. I'm not Washington. I'm not any of the. If you're any team, you feel probably 2 about your offense. Most teams in football about their offensive line probably feel about a 2. I mean, the Eagles are just, they're lucky with the fact that they have 3 guys who are Pro Bowl level players, maybe 5. I don't know. Becton might step in here and be an all-pro level player. He has that kind of talent. I'm not saying that he is. I'm just saying, how many teams in the NFL think they have 5 guys that can all be Pro Bowl level players? Not many.
It was what Lombardi said, just the Lions.
The Lions, exactly. That's probably it for teams in this league that feel pretty good about their offensive line. I think other than Philadelphia, Detroit, maybe San Francisco.
If Trent Williams gets back in there.
And he's not out there either. That you feel like your offensive line's a question mark.
I mean, you could give the Rams a lot of credit for upgrading their O-line, but we saw the Bengals invest a lot of money last year into their O-line. Didn't work.
Didn't go very well for them.
The Chiefs' O-line is better the last couple of years than it was a couple of years before that, but I'm not going to act like the Chiefs are on the same level as the Lions.
There's not very many teams in this NFL where you can say the offensive line for them is a strength. Most teams have way too many question marks on their offensive line.
Mike, that's today's Big Three.
All right, there you go. Big Three on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. We've got
Mike Gill's big play coming up next.
Yeah, I won last night. Gave you a winner in the Parks 365, the Bet 365 play of the day. Was last night was a base hit for Stott. He had 2 hits last night.
He had 2 hits last night. He
I got
actually
one
hit
for you
the
tonight.
over.
I'll give you my Bet 365 play of the day. Coming up on the other side. Been watching, I told you yesterday, I was watching Shrinking.
How's that going?
I really enjoy it. Harrison Ford is great in that show.
Man's a legend.
They dusted off Harrison Ford for this show, and he is great. He plays a great role in the show.
I saw Harrison Ford doing an interview recently because he's going to be in the upcoming Marvel movie that comes out early next year. And he was talking about how he feels like his life's being revived, like his career's revived because he's in a TV comedy and now he's going to be in a superhero movie.
It's a good show.
He's like, my life has completely gone on like a 180, he said.
It's definitely worth it. He's funny. Jason Segel's good in the show. The whole cast is good. I'm really enjoying the show.
I think Segel's an underrated comedy guy.
Shrinking on Apple TV Plus. More Sports Bash on the other side. We'll give you the Bet 365 play of the day next.
.com. It's the Sports Bash with Gill.
Do I have everybody's attention now?
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
All right, 5:52. Time for my Bet 365 play of the day. It's Aaron Nola tonight, under 5.5 strikeouts. It's 5 straight games. He hasn't gone over that number. Good Astros team tonight. I'll go Nola under 5.5 strikeouts in the game against the Astros tonight. 5 straight games that Nola hasn't had 6 strikeouts. So I'll go with the under for Aaron Nola tonight. Try to keep that hot streak going. I say hot streak. I've only won one of the 2 picks, but felt good about last night. You know why? Because I said Stott with a hit. He got me 2.
Got you 2. Got you the 2. You felt extra good about it.
Yeah, I felt extra good about it. Lineup tonight, we gave it to you earlier. We'll give it to you one more time. It's brought to you by Clark's Moving and Storage. Moving to Breeze with Clark's Moving and Storage in Rio Grande. Schwarber, Turner, Harper, Bohm, Castellanos, Stott, Realmuto, Marsh, Hayes is your lineup tonight. So Marsh is back in center. Hayes is in left. We got people texting in, Marsh should go to left. Rojas. People were wanting Rojas in center. They want Hayes out of the lineup.
They've come to the dark side, man. They've joined me.
Well, the Hayes thing, I've said from the jump here. You're batting a guy 9th. You don't need a 9-hole hitter. You already had a 9-hole hitter. Now you're lacking defense and not gaining any offense. The move just doesn't make any sense at this stage. Now, Hayes has been a pretty decent hitter lifetime against lefties. That hasn't really come to fruition. Why? They're not facing any lefties. So if you're going to play him against right-handed pitching, that trade looks like you're playing him because why? Because you traded for him.
Exactly.
Right?
It's like the Buddy Hield trade, the Sixers. Like, you're playing the guy, well, we have to. We traded for him.
All right. I think that's all I got today.
So after the Phillies, you're going to watch more of...
Shrinking.
Shrinking?
Yep. Yeah, we've been... they're about half-hour episodes. I think the first couple are like 42, 40-some minutes.
So
and
it's
then,
easy to work through.
Yeah, they've been down in the 30-some minute range, so watch a couple after the Phils.
I was excited that I revealed to you that Harrison Ford is older than you thought. 82?
I didn't really have a guess, but... He's really good in the show. I really like his character. The show's been really good. I don't even know how we even came across to watch that one, but I'm having a good time with it. So that'll be tonight after the film. I actually last night, Phils won extra innings. So we put the Phils on. We had the Phils on the big TV, and then after the extra innings, we watched like 3 or 4 more episodes, which kept me up too late because the Phils going extra innings last night.
So it's too good of a show.
Great. All right.
Hey, Apple TV Plus is paying off for you now.
Yeah, so far. I heard the Vince Vaughn show is pretty fun.
I saw the commercial for that. That's next on your list.
Possible. Well, football season gets here. The shows start to fall off.
That's
They
true.
got me for about another week.
That's true.
Trying to sneak them all in. McGarry tomorrow, McMullen tomorrow, Mosher tomorrow, Jeff Kerr tomorrow. All here on the Sports Bash. Have a great night, everybody. Game night is up next.